I call this meeting to order. Confirmation of the agenda that the Council of the Township of North Huron accept the agenda for the October 5th, 2020 meeting as presented. Do I have a mover? I have Mr. Faulkner. I have Mr. McBurney. Seconding. All in favor? Carries. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, we shall move on. Public comments. This is an opportunity for the members of the public to speak to any item of business that's on the agenda. 2 minutes per person. Would anybody like to speak to anything that's on the agenda? Not seeing anyone, we shall move on. Consent agenda, that the Council Township of North Huron hereby adopts consent item 5.1.1, and further that the Council Township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 5.1.2 and 5.3.3 for information. Do I have a mover? I have Councillor Hittersum, seconder. I have Mr. McBurney. Does anybody like to pull anything out from those before we call the vote? Anything come to mind? Go ahead, Deputy Reeve Sight.
Yes, thank you, Reeve. Really a question for Marty as it relates to the fire prevention officer's report. Is there any? I do see that there's a couple of outstanding files and ongoing. Are any of those investigations or files, are those any longer than 6 months? Like, are they longer? Like, are they long-standing, outstanding stuff, or is this current stuff?
Current stuff.
Okay.
We did have one that was over 6 months, but it was because it was at the fire marshal's office.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Not seeing anyone, I'll call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Public meetings and delegations. We have a delegation with Connor Brooks, Cultural Shock Skate. Update for safety skate park facilities. Connor, would you like to step up to the microphone and just introduce yourself and tell us what's going on, son?
Microphone right there.
Nope, right there, right in front of you. Sorry, not the microphone, the podium. Sorry.
So I would like to thank all you for having me in here to listen to me. These are my friends and everybody streaming in here. But yeah, we'd like to talk about the Blythe Skate Park and some of the needs for the updated facilities. And then just go my slides.
Yep, so that mouse there, if you just scroll down through.
Oh, yes. All right, so I have my agenda here. I just want to bring to light, first and foremost, the necessities for updated skate park facilities in town of Blythe. We're going to go ahead and display kind of what's wrong with the current park and all that kind of stuff. And then talk about the benefits that a new or improved skate park could bring to the community, and then show you kind of like a rough design, what that looks like, and then get back with some input from you guys. So on to this, problems with the current Blythe skate park. There's some photos up there. So first and foremost, it's kind of not really conducive to learning, and which makes it hard for anybody. The skate park and all the activities that go around, happen around it, should be accessible for everybody, and everybody should be able to just walk right in and be able to kind of do something. And it's kind of hard pressed in Blythe, the way it is currently. It's actually kind of become also weathered and really dangerous. It seemed to have been left out this winter, I know for sure, and probably winters after or winters before that. But yeah, there's cracks in the surfacing of all the most of the equipment, and it's kind of rusting away, and the metal's cracking as well. It's a little tough. It's the past years we've had some real difficulty with just it being put up, and I know this year's an exception with everything that's been going on, but it seems to be hard to get it put up and even easier to get it taken down. So that's, seems to be a problem. It's kinda hard to get to in the middle of nowhere, like you can pretty much get blown over by a gust of wind where it is right now. And, that seems to be a little bit of a problem. We'd, also just like to compare it to any other towns in the area. Clinton has a massive skateboard park, and actually, I think all sorts of, they got the splash pad right beside. It's just a great little community hub that they have going on, as well as Goderich too. Goderich just spent a little money there, and there's kids at both of those places nonstop. Our trash cans, some trash cans just showed up there a month ago, so that's a start for sure. But the last point there is it was better when it was do it yourself, and we actually build skateboard ramps all the time and put them up there. We actually had to take our ramps away due to liability, which we totally understand, but we were having a lot more fun with it when we kind of had the control over it. We'd like to move on there to the displayed need in the community. We had a summer stand, Main Street Blythe, every Thursday, and we had kids there pretty much the whole time. Some of them were actually standing with me right here, and they were actually running around helping us raise money. We raised a whole bunch of money, about $422 to be exact, just with a little jar on the street, and showing how many kids were actually interested and invested in it. There's like it and that in itself said something to like the extreme lack of recreational things for kids to do. If they're showing up every Thursday in the summer to some skateboard stand in Main Street, it means a lot to us, but displays that, I feel like. So there's that for sure. I brought with me a whole bunch of petitions that I got people signed, and we also have some petitions signed online as well, which
I just wanna stop for a second, just so you're aware, the petitions, I believe, had to be filled out, on forms and into the town, employees in a particular way. Do you know if you did it the particular way or just a form?
yeah, we do have the North Huron forms
Okay.
actually, but
Yeah. Okay, so just so you understand, and council understands there's, protocol, and I wasn't sure, just so I just asked, so.
for sure.
Sorry to interrupt you, go ahead.
Now we'd just like to touch on some of the benefits in the community. I'm sure like me and my friends can attest, we travel anywhere within 2.5 hours, I'd say, is our maximum to go to the skateboard park if it's nice enough and it offers something that we don't have around here. So I definitely go out on a limb and say it would bring some people into town if it was properly built. And I'm talking a lot about skateboarding because that's kind of my end of the spectrum, and I know for a fact it has, like it says up there, positive effects on mental health as well as promoting healthy and active lifestyles. That's pretty standard. I totally agree with that. I say reduce property damage because I've been known to be skateboarding up at the theater, and they just spent a whole heck of a lot of money up there, and I don't actually intend to wreck anything, and we have not wrecked anything as of yet, but it'd just be a heck of a lot easier to bypass that whole setup. An entire industry can be built around one small skateboard scene. That's what we're kind of trying to do, to be honest with you. There's lots of opportunities right down from the opportunity of just getting the thing built to all the opportunities that can grow up around kids doing what they enjoy at the skateboard park, and they can video themselves, all sorts of stuff. Plus, they just enjoy it. And they're self-maintained and self-supervised. Like, if it were to be done right and all in concrete, there wouldn't really be much maintenance as far as that goes. And then skate parks are self-supervised. Like, that's another one that was with it.
We need to slide the boost over a little bit, over to the side, keep it going.
Oh yeah, there we go. So we'll get right down to the proposal here. What we're proposing pretty much is a a hub for like-minded people to come together, be active and creative in their town. A permanent skate park specifically designed to fit the needs of the community. And then we just wanted to come to you guys and see exactly what you have to say before we get started off in any particular direction. But that should be that. If there's any further questions or anything anybody else would like to say.
Well, I want to thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak? Council, do you have questions, concerns, comments? Go ahead, Mr. Faulkner.
Thank you, through you, Reeve. Question for Connor. The park in Clinton, do you know of how Clinton went about that? Do they have a youth council or something, or someone that, as yourself, went to council and tried to promote the skate park, or do you know whether they just did it on their own as a council, just as a?
I believe it was a mix of both. They, an older gentleman, in his like late 30s, I believe, kind of went and spearheaded it actually. So it actually wasn't even a youth council or anything like that. And I think they kind of worked together with the council as well to kind of make it happen in a real nice way. And kids are always there, yeah.
I have a follow-up.
Go ahead.
This is through you to staff. The question is, what was the scope of the transfer of the original equipment from the original organization of the current equipment that's there, and was there any consideration as to the upkeep? Is this now in North Huron's hands?
Go ahead.
Through your worship, so just in terms of a bit of background, it was the skate park was established in 2007. It was established through local fundraising efforts. And St. Anne's, as well you understand, based on correspondence, actually constructed the skate park itself. Prior to construction, there were some drawings that were reviewed by our insurance company, and the insurance company concurred and agreed that, so in terms of the structure that we have now. The arrangement, based again on correspondence, is that once the park was constructed, the municipality assumes responsibility for all the maintenance or repair and the upkeep. There is a board we are aware of that is splintering on the skate park that does need to be replaced, but otherwise, for all intents and purposes, it's deemed to be a safe structure. We usually set it up in the spring and is taken down before the threshers to facilitate that. And depending on the weather, and I can't speak for this particular year, but generally speaking, after threshers, if the weather is conducive to skate park, then the structure historically has been set up after the threshers event. And another consideration for council is in terms of, we have the rec master plan. And in terms of costs, just based on staff's research, a small skateboard park, which is approximately 3,000 square feet, with one feature, has a price tag of a minimum of $135,000. And if you want to go to what we call a neighborhood skateboard park, which is approximately 10,000 square feet, at a cost of $45 a square foot, a larger skate park runs you around $450,000. So just information for council's consideration. And in terms of fundraising, that's sort of the dollar figures that you'd be looking for. So,
Mr. Palmer first, and then Mrs. Hiddle some second.
Yeah, through your Eve, Connor. Yeah, it's good to see you folks. Now, I don't want to diminish your numbers here, present tonight, but how many kids, I'll just say kids, if that's all right, would there be, or do you have an estimate that would be the users?
Yeah. Total for the park?
Just possible numbers, yeah.
Yeah. I want to say anywhere from 50 to 75, because you don't have to physically be able to actually do anything at the skate park to enjoy what's going on there. It can be a great community hub for all sorts of children. Yeah.
Okay, and my other thought, Reeve, have you talked to any of the service clubs for support or anything like that?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments or concerns? Go ahead, Mr. Faulkner, and then,
Anita was next, wasn't it?
sorry, Anita, you were next. I did say that, didn't I?
Thank you, Connor. It's very brave from you to present your plans here. It's really nice, and you understand it's a lot of money. That you know that before you started here. Do you have a special location for it in mind, or because you said it's pretty remote where it is right now? So do you think like it would be better to have it maybe in the Lions Park and work together with the Lions to get some money?
Definitely, that's a great
Or
idea.
with the theater, or?
Yeah, no, exactly. That's exactly what we kind of had in mind, that it could kind of, if we could centralize it in Blythe a little better, it could definitely, like you said, work together with all sorts of different organizations. And
Yeah, but you haven't done that yet.
not yet.
So you understand that this is really a lot of money for council to decide on tonight. So I really appreciate you bringing this to us, and yeah, I would say go ahead, keep on fundraising, and go from there. I think it's a good idea.
Before I take any more, thank you, Anita. Before I take any more questions, could everybody please make sure your cell phones are off, because poor Connor here, he's trying to make a presentation. And he's as nervous as can be. He doesn't need any help. I believe I had Kevin first, and then Paul, and then to Trevor third.
Through you, do we have any idea of what the square footage of the park in Clinton is? Is it the 10,000, or do we know of, or how big the park is?
I'm not quite sure off the top of my head, but actually, I didn't quite touch on this. Like you said, I am quite nervous, but
It's okay.
this is a skate park in where my buddy lives in Granton, and it actually has a smaller population than Blythe. Actually, nobody really uses it but us. We kind of come down there just to use a little private park. But yeah, it's actually, for how small it is, and it's a beautiful place. Like, I can't say enough about that, and I wouldn't say it cost over $200,000.
They put, sorry, I don't know, speak here.
No, go ahead, young lad. Go ahead.
They put it out that they had built that one for under $75,000. They really used their space with that. And they built it over, like, if you dig in the dirt, it's a lot cheaper to, like, make quarter pipes and such.
Yeah, there's all sorts of natural ways to build a skate park. Like, if you can kind of see there's a rock they put in, and they kind of stabilize that out, so there's less of a concrete pour that goes in. There's all sorts of things that can be done to reduce costs, as long as.
Thank you, Connor. Young man, could I just have your name for the record?
Joseph Bizzetti.
Thank you, Joseph. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that was about it. There's all sorts of things that can be done to reduce cost if you know what you want, and you really, yeah.
Is that it, Kev?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's just one of the
Paul?
things.
Through you, Reed. Yes, Connor, thanks for coming here tonight with your friends here. Yeah, I was just thinking, like the Trillium Foundations and things like that, I don't know whether you look at that and just look in with the service clubs, because what we spend on things, it has to come from somewhere. We're allotting so much money, eh? So I think you understand, and Councillor Van Henderson said that. And but it's good to hear that you're planning something, and service clubs, I know they got a chunk of a park down there this spring, and they said they're going to be doing some things in there, but I'm not sure if skateboard was mentioned or not. There's 3 or 4 things they brought up, but I'd really encourage you to go focus with them too.
For sure. Thank you very much.
Trevor.
Yes, thank you, Reed. So I guess the part for me is, one, I would really like to see what the rec master plan tells us as it relates to necessity of need. I'm not disowning the fact that there's children that think it's a great thing because we have it, and I think it's a great thing if we had one. I'm not suggesting that one way or another. However, obviously, it's been mentioned more than once time here. There's a lot of money invested in these types of things, and we as a municipality have have a real struggle from time to time as to figure out what we're gonna spend our capital money on. And arguably, our issue currently right now is the skate park is on municipal land, and it's owned and operated by the municipality. Does that have to be the case? No, it does not. It does not have to be the case whatsoever. And what I've heard from councillors here tonight is a collaboration with other service clubs and other things. Arguably, I think those other service clubs and stuff are in the same boat as everybody else right now. COVID-19 has taken a significant hit out of everybody's pocket in the sense that nobody really knows where their fundraising dollars are coming from anymore. They're not really sure what's there. My position on this is that I would really, before we make a decision, I think, Connor, you and your team, the supporters, keep up doing what you're doing. You're not doing anything wrong in the sense that you're coming here and asking for support from us, and I'm willing to provide that support if I have more information as it relates to the need of the community as a whole. And that's what this rec master plan is supposed to tell us. And it's not just about skate parks, it's about recreation as a whole in the municipality. So I think ultimately, in my mind, that plan, along with budget, is gonna come to a determination of what we can and we cannot fund as it relates to this proposal. So, am I saying personally, am I saying no? No, I'm not saying no. I'm just not saying anything right now because I don't have enough information. Staff have given us a little bit of information, but based on the rec master plan, I would suggest that after we get that rec master plan, that a staff report come back as it relates to this skate park proposal to determine whether council wants to propose something, set up, an arrangement, work with the service clubs, whatever arrangement we want to have. I think if we do that, I think we keep this on the agenda as it relates to when that rec master plan is. I don't think we lose it. I don't think we disown the fact that Connor's done an exceptional job of bringing what information he has, and I actually went to the skate park on Saturday to take a look at it. I've taken a look at it quite a number of times, but I actually made a point to actually drive there with my family on Saturday to take a look at it. Would I consider it a skate park? No, I would not consider it a skate park. And again, I'm being honest. The fact that if you want to look at what a skate park is, that's not one, as it relates to. But in all honesty, the municipality inherited it. So arguably, is that the right thing? No, but we potentially have a solution that Connor has brought. But I think we need more information as it relates to finances, rec master plan, long-term strategy as it relates to recreation in the municipality before we can make a decision on this type of money. Whether it's $100,000 or $400,000 or $70,000, it's a lot of money. It relates to taxation that we have to talk about. So I think that's my recommendation, Reed, just because I know we've got a lot of things as it relates to rec on the agenda coming into budget as it relates to the rec master plan. So. But I do want to say thank you as well as the rest of council, and I'm sure everybody in the municipality was very happy to hear that youth are well deserved to come to the municipality, and we can't help if we don't know. And I thank you very much that to come here is a big deal. It's a big deal for any youth to come to in front of people, and I think I would strongly support anything that you would like to do. We just need to talk about it more and get more information, but it's going to be definitely on my agenda going forward to ensure that that information is not going to be left. You're going to hear more about this over the next coming, not months, but you're going to definitely hear it over the next couple of years.
Thank you, Trevor. So, young Mr. Brooks, I think you heard tonight that what we did not hear tonight is one counselor saying no. We did not hear that. We heard every counselor's behind you. We all heard no matter what comes before a council, it always becomes a money problem. We did hear that it was a little tattered, and we are responsible to take care of it, so I'm sure staff is on top of that already. So moving forward, as everybody has indicated, stay in touch with us. Just reach out to don't be afraid to come back to us. Do not be afraid to talk to our staff. Okay, we want to be involved in it. The most serious question of the night, though, I'm going to end with this. The most serious question of the night. If the guy that was 30 was old, what am I in my 60s?
Just older.
Just old. Go ahead, Mr. McBurney. Go
Through
ahead.
you, Reed Bailey. Connor, I'd like to thank you as well. And in regards to that issue at Memorial Hall, you listened and
Yeah,
abided by it, and I thank you for that.
yeah, no, for sure.
Kevin?
Just offer, I started skateboarding when I was 7 years old, a steel wheel skateboard, when the Beach Boys were talking about surfing on the sidewalk. And I still have a skateboard at home, I'll have you know, and you're welcome to come down and I'll show you how to ride it. Thank you, Connor, it was,
Yeah.
well,
Thank you very much,
Well,
Mr.
thank
Brooks.
you all
Thank
very
everyone for coming up. Stay in touch with us, okay? Oh, wait, we have to pass a motion?
Well, you don't have to pass a motion, but the direction I got here, I have a draft motion. So that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the delegation presentation from Connor Brooks for information purposes, and further that council defers the Blythe skate park discussions until the completion of the recreation master plan.
Do I have a mover? I have Mr. McBurney. Seconder is Mrs. Hittersum. Question, comments? Seeing none. All in favor? Carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just in that sense with staff, I would suggest that because the rec master plan has been one that has eluded us for many, many years, I would suggest that we keep this group apprised, that we've got contact information to allow them to understand when the timelines of this rec master plan is. I think that's important. They took time out of their schedule to come here. I think it's only important that we correspond back and forth to them to know when we think we may get some response.
Good points, Trevor. Okay. 6.2 zoning bylaw amendment, file number Z02-20. Location concession 10, part of lot 31, East Wawanosh Township of North Huron. 38859 Belfast Road. Applicant owners Ranko Markovich, Eli and Sarah Byler. And I apologize if I said those names wrong. We're gonna have a presentation from the Huron County Planner first.
Thank you, Mr. Reeve. Good evening, Council. This is zoning bylaw amendment application Z02 for 2020. The applicants, as the Reeve mentioned, Ranko Markulovic on behalf of Eli and Sarah Byler. The location of the property is on Belfast Road on concession 10, part of lot 31 in East Wawanosh. The purpose of this zoning bylaw amendment application is to permit a bank barn to be reconstructed, moved to the property, and to have a barnyard. The application is for a zoning bylaw amendment from natural environment, NE2, to natural environment special zones, NE2-5. So the slide that I have up at the moment is just showing the subject property. It's a 60-acre farm that is developed for an agricultural purpose. And this, the photo that I have up here is from 2015, but this is a photo that I got off of Google Earth. So you can see that the property has been developed for Mr. and Mrs. Byler's home, a garden, and fields for agriculture and a sawmill. So the slide that I have up here is from the applicant's application form. And what this shows is the location of the existing house and existing sawmill. The portion of the property that's outlined with the dashed line at the northwest is the existing bush. And the area with the darker bold line and a box in it, let me just see, I don't think my pointer points for you guys. But there's a 1/4 acre area that is proposed to be rezoned for the area of the barn and a barnyard for animals. And the zoning bylaw amendment, as I stated before, is from natural environment to natural environment special zones. And that barnyard and barn location would be just to the south of the existing wooded area. So in the area where the barnyard and the barn are proposed, the area has recently undergone some changes. The owner of the property removed some dead ash trees and cleared out some underbrush in the area to make the barnyard area for his animals. In consultation with the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority and the Huron County biologist, as well as the Huron County Forestry Conservation Officer, it was determined that this zoning bylaw amendment could be supported based on the idea that new replanting of native trees would happen in the area of the bush to the north. So in consideration that the species were dying and there's buckthorn and other undesirable species in the area of the proposed barnyard, and that more desirable species are proposed to be planted, in working with the owner of the property, the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, for example, has a regulation over this area, has been satisfied, and they're willing to issue a permit for the construction of the barn. And the Huron County biologist was able to provide a positive planning comment on the zoning bylaw amendment, and has stated that further studies like an environmental impact assessment are not required. Also in conversation with the Huron County Forestry Conservation Officer, there is no issue with the Huron County tree cutting bylaw for the 1/4 acre that was affected by the removal of the ash trees and the removal of the brush, and that his opinion is that the planting of the native trees in the bush to the north will either equal or improve over the conditions that existed prior to the removal of the trees. So in consideration of a zoning bylaw amendment like this, the tests that need to be looked at under the North Huron official plan is the application having any negative impact on an area of a significant natural environment features or functions, and in determining that the application does not have a negative impact, as I stated, the MVCA and the Huron County biologist, as well as the Huron County Forestry Conservation Officer were consulted. And the determination was made by these agencies that there are no concerns for natural environment hazards, such as flooding or erosion, and there's no concern for natural environment functions, such as impact on the ecology of the area. So based on those agency comments, it is the planning department's recommendation that this application for rezoning be approved.
Thank you, Monica. Now we're gonna give an opportunity to comment on the application by the applicant or their agent or both. Would anybody like to speak to it? No?
Maybe
Okay,
I'll let them work with that.
thank you. Opportunity for to comment from others in attendance. Mr. Vincent? If you'd like to come forward.
There, I'm going to try and be as positive as I can. The other 2 pages of critique on certain things, in the past, I pulled out of my presentation to keep it short. So thank you, Mr. Reeve, councillors, staff, and others in the gallery. Many of my thoughts have changed since I first got notification of the possible zoning change. First of all, with a change of provincial government, we are using the zoning term natural environment again, which I'm strongly in favor of. Secondly, having County Planning Department and Maitland Valley Conservation Authority both working with a tax-paying landowner is a great step in the right direction. This being said, I still have great reservations about the river valley and the floodplain mapping. There is too many parts of that were done by a person sketching on a map a number of years ago. With modern equipment to read elevation and spatial references, I believe we could drastically cut the need for many of these permits being requested. This would allow a property owner to do many assessments as to where real risk would be involved, and if they in fact wanted to do a development. Why am I commenting? I own the farm across Belfast Road and have 48 years experience with the flooding in that area. I rented the workable land on the subject property for 42 years. My source of water, until 5 years ago, was from a well tile that I installed on the subject property. One of the subjects that I feel needs to be mentioned is the underground stream that runs on the subject property adjacent to that bank, or difference of elevation that's about a 6-foot rise up to the agricultural field. And I believe the underground stream, which is approximately a foot wide, a foot deep, pea stone the size of the end of my little finger, and it runs approximately 3 to 4 feet under the ground level. That's what I tapped the well tile in as the water source. And when it follows the contour of the bank, I feel that in construction, when Eli digs for footing for the foundation, looking for that underground stream, there might have to be things done at that time to mitigate it. But I think that is one of the most serious concerns with this location. And I'm not saying it can't be mitigated, such as rerouting it or to a different area. While I hope that I have seen the worst of the flooding in this area in the past, we cannot accurately predict future weather storm severity. And another 4 feet of flooding on the worst that I have seen would put water onto this site. I believe it's still highly remote, but many of us have seen things, especially on the 23rd of June 2017, that we never ever thought we'd see before. And We want the rules and regulations protecting environmental features followed consistently between all properties. So that, if there's any other questions, on this, I would be pleased to talk to council staff or anybody on it. Thank you very much, Mr. Reeve.
Thank you very kindly, Neil. We appreciate that. We'll do the questions after if there's another.
Okay?
Yep, thank you. Yes, young man, come up and give us your name and give us your thoughts.
Never been here before, so you gotta bear with me. I don't know who to address and who not to.
Right here.
The Reeve, yeah. My name's Don McNall. I'm on the left side, opposite of Neil.
Mhm.
Park lot 31.
Pardon me?
Park lot 31.
Par lot 31, adjacent to this gentleman here.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, what you said, Neil, is quite true. There is a couple natural springs. We have a well on our farm, well, not really our farm, our cottage, next to Eli's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And even this year alone, I've noticed quite a difference in our water. We've had it tested a few times. We're getting contamination from even the little bit of development that's going on right now as we speak. So I'm not an environment guy. I don't know if it has something to do with the house and sawmills he's built or the horse range and whatnot. But there is quite a concern that, me and my family, I have 3 brothers, and my mother and my kids all go out to that spot on the river and everything. But, the biggest thing is, our concern is that things aren't gonna be looked after properly, regarding the nature, the natural spring that we used to see bubble up from the ground, which we no longer see, a little creek bed, Neil can testify to that. With our well, Neil's well, there's been quite a few different changes in the last little while, and I just came here to speak my mind, say I hope it doesn't get any worse. I have no problem with somebody building as long as they follow the rules and regulation, but like I said, I've noticed a big difference in the last couple of years already with our property right there, so.
Okay, thank you very kindly.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, thank you. 6.2.4, this is opportunity for questions and comments from council members. So I'll open it up to the floor. Who would like to start? Mr. Faulkner?
Thank you. Through your Reeve, this question goes to Neil. Just some clarification on Neil. You said that the point where you're drawing your water is just that shallow underground aquifer? It's only 4 feet deep?
Not a full 4 feet.
So it's basically.
That was okay for a herd of, up to 62 dairy cows and a company. At times we've had as much as, 140 cattle, and that admittedly, you didn't pump it all in 5 minutes, but I will say the overflow that leaked out around the well tile when we put it in, I did put a 6-inch tile up, well, it goes across that field, pretty well straight. The well tile is just back of the house.
Yes, you can almost see the line going across.
Actually, if you look very carefully, just where it's almost getting wider, you can see where the 6-inch tile goes across, and it would not take all the overflow at times. That probably, if it wasn't for that tile, there would still be too much leakage of that underground stream, and it would probably eliminate the site that Eli's looking at.
The second portion was, so the water that you're currently collecting now is not from your property? It's from their property.
Eli is the only user of that. I drilled a well 5 years ago.
Okay, so he's the only user, so
That-
you're not drawing
No,
your water from his
that,
property?
that legally I have the right
Mhm. But I was just
to
asking
draw
whether-
water from that property.
Yeah.
The previous owner had put that into the deed.
But I was just asking, you asked my question, you drilled a separate,
Yes, we have a drilled well by the house
Yeah,
across the
yeah.
road now.
okay, thank you.
And that basically the Irwin Farms was the first family that farmed that. And the water came from across the road for probably most of the last 80 years from that underground stream.
Thank you, Neil. Any other questions, Councillor Palmer?
Yeah, through you, Reeve, it's to Monica.
Did you want me to answer from here, Mr.?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. It's really hard to, looking at the diagram, the hand drawn, compared to the satellite, as to the location of this barn, like, is it in the egg? Well, you can see, is it in that?
No,
Is it around here?
If you could imagine, a connection in between that field, straight across towards where the sawmill is, that's the area, the quarter of an acre area that was cleared.
So it's in here then?
Yeah.
All right, then, what's the distance? It is, what is the distance from the barn to the natural, environmental natural area, the bush? Like by rights, it should be 30 meters, correct?
Well, the black line on that drawing would show the fence line, and the natural environment is right up to that fence line.
Yeah, it doesn't help me at all. Sorry, it doesn't help me, I can't see. So I guess all I need to know is it 30 meters?
Probably not 30 meters, no.
How does it get away with that?
We consulted with the Huron County biologists and the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority. The Maitland Valley Conservation Authority has a regulation over this area. So there isn't a 30-meter setback in the zoning bylaw. It's the Conservation Authority's regulation.
That's odd, because I hear elsewhere that they're stuck on 30 and the biologist is maybe wanting more and this and that. We need consistency. Like, people out there are wondering, you know, he's getting this, why do I have to do that? Like, you can see how important it is. I don't care what it is, we need consistency.
Just from my point of view, that's a Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, you should be addressing.
Comes to us though.
Not the, Huron County planner.
Yeah, but the biologist is part of it. The Huron County biologist is part of it. Okay, that's interesting. Do they need a nutrient management plan?
A nutrient management plan doesn't kick in for the low number of animals that are involved with this, so no.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, I just said okay.
With permission from the council, former Reeve Vincent would like to speak. Is it okay?
Okay, well, I'm not going to hit it exactly, but where I said that 6-inch tile went across, you go into the trees on the right side of it, and then south.
You can see a small clearing there.
Yeah. So that is as close as I can call it, and that it's, well,
Okay.
if you're driving by, there's ash trees in that spot that are dying. The leaves went off the road.
Okay. No, I can picture it.
Okay, if that helps.
Yeah, thanks.
If I may read?
Yep.
That while this is being treated much more favorably, in my opinion, by the planning department and Maitland Valley, that there, I said a change in government. The former provincial Liberal government pushed a Natural Heritage Act. I said that I am very impressed that it was called natural environment. Natural heritage did not, it was a dirty word in Huron County because it was so restrictive on the landowners. And this, I think, and I say I want this to continue because there's been constructive work between the planning department and Maitland Valley to do what the landowner wants. So that I believe it's a strong step in the right direction. And in approving this, I think you're stating that you're in favor of Maitland Valley and the planning department working with the taxpayers to give them what they need, as long as it isn't a risk to themselves or anybody else.
Thank you, Mr. Vincent. Mrs. Henderson?
Yes, I would like to ask you, do you have water samples from before the wireless wire building, or is
I
it
take
just
them
from?
into the Wingham Hospital,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so what is the contamination on your water?
I have no idea what you're talking about. It is-
Why is your water not here?
I can't remember off the top of my head, I should have been more prepared, I just found out about this meeting like yesterday.
Okay,
Yeah.
so do you have water samples from before, Mr. Byler was there or not?
Yeah, we have them from years ago at the Wingham Hospital, I don't know if they keep records over at the Wingham Hospital.
Okay, so they tested for E. coli, and right now you think there is,
Well, I even noticed a color difference in the water.
that could be rust.
Well, we have dirt coming up.
Not only dirt, but, like,
Gravel.
sometimes it's even, and we've had our well, we have like a 60-foot well, and
Okay.
we've had it purged and everything, and we still get.
How do you know? You weren't even born when that well came in there.
I said
You
we,
said you said no.
Guys, can you direct your comments, questions and comments to the brief, please?
we
Thank you
have
very
like a
much.
60-foot well, and now we still get, in the last couple of years now, like even a scum on the dishes. That's why we take it in, cause I have kids, I'm concerned about them drinking the water.
Okay,
We
thank
haven't
you.
drank anymore.
Yeah, we haven't drank it in 2 years now.
Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Deputy Reeve Site.
Yeah, you know, I don't have, what I'm hearing, I've sat and listened to the comments by counselors, the planner, and really what I'm hearing is, let's ensure that the work between Maitland Valley, the planning department, and that is consistent and approachable and consistency as it relates to every property and how, but also make it so that it's flexible enough that you can work with a landowner in order to make it work. That's what I'm hearing. That's a discussion that has to happen between Huron County, Maitland Valley, and the North Huron bylaw, because as Councillor Palmer indicated, there's lots of discussions about 30 feet this, 30 feet that, and that's a regulation that is not necessarily in our bylaw. That's a regulation that Maitland Valley has. So, you know, if we want, in my opinion, if we want Maitland Valley and Huron County Planning, and we want them to work with landowners to make sure that they can utilize the land in an effective and appropriate way, with not risking the environment in the sense that risking somebody else's water or drainage or whatever the case may be, then we need to ensure that our zoning bylaw appropriates that. And I think ultimately my concern is, from this particular issue is that nowhere did I hear in any of the report that I read was a discussion about an underground stream. So information that was received tonight from Mr. Vincent about an underground stream and a water that you're drawing on, do I know anything about that stream? I have no idea whether that stream is real or not real. I'm taking information that you guys are providing us. So at the end of the day, you know, we have done a lot of floodplain mapping. Maitland Valley has done a lot of floodplain mapping, updated that stuff for us. To be quite honest with you, I don't know what it says about this particular development property. But if residents and ratepayers alike can accept this development, and I'm not hearing any objection from what I've heard, what I'm hearing is, when this development happens, can we ensure that water is looked at and treated and have no issues with, if there's an issue that comes up with the water, that ratepayers can have a discussion about how do we solve this problem? And I'm seeing a lot of nodding, so what I'm hearing is, if there's an issue with water that comes out of this discussion, if this zoning bylaw was to be approved by council tonight, then I'm hearing that, ratepayers alike can have a discussion about how this water is going to impact them and what can be done to really is. So I guess I'm asking that question, Reeve. Do you as the ratepayers think you can work something out if something happens as it relates to this development, that if it impacts your water in some way or form or another, or it impacts drainage, is that something that you guys can work out as opposed to impacting what this development could do? I guess I'm asking the collection.
So,
For me, I'm okay with it.
I'm okay, I'm just worried about the saturation, because like I said, I'm to the left of the open field, not very far from the picture up there. I'm worried about the saturation from the animals seeping into the well and whatnot. And that was my biggest concern, it's like I have 3 little kids, my brother has 3 little kids, et cetera, and we're all there.
yes, go ahead, young man.
Yes, I understand your concerns, and I wasn't shaking my head because you're well. I know you're well on your property, sorry. I was shaking my head because you said there's contamination there. However, in my belief, any seepage from my animals shouldn't end up anywhere close to your well. Because there's actually, if there is any runoff involved, there is actually another valley between myself and your property.
Well, I know quite well, I played on there for 40 years before you bought it.
Yeah, so it would have to actually run upstream or uphill to get to your well.
Well, no, it can seep into the valley and down into the.
Yeah.
So gentlemen,
Yes.
gentlemen,
And
please.
That's what I'm worried
yeah,
about.
okay, I hear everybody's concerns.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm concerned if I'm affecting his water, I
Yeah.
honestly am.
No,
I've
yeah.
never ever heard about it before until now,
Yeah.
that's all.
Yeah, this is, as Deputy Reeves said, this is due to us, it was not anything on the,
Yeah.
and we're gonna address that in a minute. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I guess the biggest concern for you, Eli, is, for you folks, is how manure is stored. And that's why I mentioned the nutrient management plan, because in that you have to deal with it and you have to do it right. So if you don't have to have the plan, then it'll be up to you to store it smartly, so it does not run off and cause issues, okay?
Yes.
I'm gonna let Mrs. Hittersum speak first, and then we're going, with council's permission, Neil would like to speak.
As far as I'm aware of, new building permits are always checked if they're not too close to a well. There is a special well protection area around the well, and you have to stay away from that. So I trust that the county and the building inspector will stay away from that. And there are plenty of natural wells in our area, like every field close or pretty close to Maitland River has spots that are wells that you can put in a hose or a pipe that will flow for water.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Neil.
That having drilled the well, it's a 50-foot separation for any livestock being able to get to it. That there was something else I was going to say and I skipped by.
That's okay.
That I have 2 copies, we'll give Carson, send up one for Carson and one for Monica.
Thank you. Thank you, Lindsay. I have a question for Monica. Monica, do you feel with things that have been presented to us here tonight that there maybe should be some further investigation before proceeding?
No, thank you. I think that the issue about the underground stream was not touched on in this planning report, but zoning doesn't address the type of drainage issues that were being raised. If there were an issue there, it would be addressed at the time of the building permit.
Okay. We're understood on that, then that's when that will be addressed. Okay. Thank you very much. Any other council questions or concerns? Not seeing any. 6.2.5, zoning bylaw procedure following a public meeting. This is a public meeting of the Council of the Township of North Huron, thus a decision of council may or may not be made this evening. If the bylaw is passed by council, the clerk is required to send notice of the passing of the bylaw to all persons and agencies notified of this public meeting. There is a 20-day objection period from the time the notice of passing of this bylaw has been mailed by first-class post, where within submissions, letters, or objections or support in respect to the passing of the bylaw will be received by the clerk. If an objection is received, an application is lodged with the local planning appeal tribunal, and at that point the township no longer has any control of the time and the factor involved. If the council does not pass the bylaw, the applicant may appeal to the local planning appeal tribunal. If the bylaw is passed and no objections are received within the objection period, the clerk certifies that the bylaw is enforced and in effect as of the date of the passing, and the notice is forwarded to the Huron County Planning and Development Department. 6.2.6. Summary of comments and recommendation from the Huron County Planning and Development Department. Monica, please.
Thank you. The recommendation of the Huron County Planning and Development Department is that this application for rezoning, having had its public meeting tonight, we recommend that the council adopt the zoning bylaw amendment.
Thank you very kindly. 6.2.7, we have one of two decisions. Go ahead.
Just
Trevor.
Reva, Monica, could you update council on what comments were received?
Sure. We had comments from the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority. Let me just open my report so that I get the So the comments received, as I outlined in my written report, comments were received from the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, that is a regulating agency in this area. The MVCA indicated that they have no objection to the zoning bylaw amendment proposed, and that it is in conformance with their natural hazard policies and in conformance with the provincial policy statement. Comments were received from the Huron County biologist, stating that he had no natural heritage concerns with this application, provided that the restoration of the woodland is carried out as planned. I also spoke verbally just prior to the meeting today with the Huron County Forestry Conservation Officer, and he thinks that overall there will be an improvement once the plantings are done. I also received verbal comments from Mr. Neil Vincent, and at the time his concerns were about flooding and impacts to the natural environment of the area. So those were the comments that I received in advance of tonight's public meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. 6.2.7, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby approves the zoning bylaw amendment file Z02-20 as it applies to concession 10 part of lot 31, 38859 Belfast Road, East Wabinosh Ward, Township of North Huron. Do I have a mover? I have Mr. Seitz moving. I have Anita seconding. Last chance for comments, questions, concerns. Seeing none, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Monica, could you give us a recommendation for number 2?
Sure. This is the effect of public comments on the decision of council. So number 5, concerns raised did not influence the decision. Public comments were received on the issues of natural environment and flooding. Comments were currently thoroughly considered, but the effect did not influence the decision of council to approve the application.
Thank
Does that
you.
sound correct?
Yes, thank you. So number two, that the zoning bylaw amendment filed Z02-20 as it applies to the concession 10 part lot 31, 38859 Belfast Road, East Wawanosh Ward, Township of North Huron. The recommendation from the chart is number 5. Do I have a mover?
So 5 for public comments, and then I would say 3 for agency comments.
My apologies.
Yeah, sorry,
And-
didn't get that right.
And 3 for, what was the 3 for?
So the agency comments were received in support of the application, the effect of which resulted in the decision to approve the application.
Thank you kindly. Do I have a mover?
So move.
And I have Kevin seconding. All in favor? Carries. Thank you. And that's it for that one. Okay, 6.3, temporary use zoning bylaw amendment, file number Z0120. Location, south half of lot 34, concession 2, East Wawanosh Township of North Huron. 83273 Monarch Line. Application is, and owner is James McNichol and JMC Farms. Presentation from the Huron County Planner. We'll start with that, Monica. Thank you.
Thank you. This is zoning application Z01 for 2020. The purpose of this application is for a temporary zoning bylaw amendment for the purpose of adding a temporary residence or garden suite for additional labor on the farm. The location, as the REIF has indicated, is on the south half of lot 34, concession 2 in East Wawanosh, on Monarch Line. The applicant, Mr. McNichol, is in attendance. This is a aerial photo of the south half of the property, and you can see it's developed for the livestock operation that is on the property. And the area in blue outlined at the south side of the property is where the proposed garden suite would be located. And my next slide is just a photograph that I took from the road. You can't really see the location of the proposed garden suite location from the road very well because there's quite a rise to the land, and the garden suite is going to be tucked back on the other side of that rise. In considering an application for temporary zoning bylaw amendment and reviewing the policies of the township's official plan and zoning bylaw, this application is in keeping with the township's policies to permit farmers to be able to add an additional temporary residence for farm labor. Mr. McNichol is, James, is the person who would be living in the dwelling. It's permitted to be there for up to 20 years, and there's a requirement that he enter into an agreement with the township to remove the building when it's no longer needed for his purposes. I worked with Mr. Nickel to draft the agreement in a way that would work for him. So the current arrangement is that his mom and dad live in the main house. In writing the agreement, the people named that would be able to live in the temporary residence would be James, a future spouse or children, or his mom or his dad. So the purpose of that is to allow a little bit of flexibility if the current sleeping arrangements change around a little bit on that farm, but it's the same people that are currently living on that farm. So it would be the planning department's recommendation that this application for temporary zoning bylaw amendment be approved.
Thank you, Monica. 6.3.2, an opportunity to comment on the application by the applicant and or the agent. James, did you wanna, you're good?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. 6.3.3, opportunity to comment by others in attendance. Anyone else? Not seeing any. 6.3.4, opportunity for questions and comments from council members. So I open it up to council now. Go ahead, Councilor Palmer.
Yeah, through you, Ray. James, do you have other lands? Do you have thoughts of building a house somewhere else at some point in time? Like, I'm not sure of your full operation.
No, we do have other farms, and actually my farm is just
right beside this one, but the only suitable building site for hydro is, it's actually, I can't build there because of the municipal dump on my own personal property, so.
I gotcha.
I could build on another farm on Scott Line, but to get the water from where the barn was built, I'd have to bring it up the laneway and cut the tile every 40 feet, and yeah, it's just not something I'm really looking to do.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, my question is, Monica, we're going to be running into a bit of this. What do you call temporary second dwelling? What do you call temporary?
Sure. So there actually are some different ways that additional residences can be added onto farms, and different municipalities deal with it in different ways. But the way that it's dealt with in North Huron is through a garden suite. So a garden suite is something that is permitted on any lands anywhere. So it could be on my property in Clinton. I could, if I wanted a place for an elderly relative to live on my property, I could apply for a garden suite to be located in my backyard of my property in Clinton. And it's through the temporary use bylaw provisions in the Planning Act. And the North Huron official plan permits this in agricultural areas for the purpose of farm labor. So it's permitted by the official plan, and the mechanism through the zoning bylaw to permit this is this temporary. So in this case, temporary means up to 20 years. The expiry of the agreement can't be any longer than 20 years, but it is eligible for renewal if in 20 years Mr. McNichol is still living there and the arrangement's still working for his family, then he could ask the township to renew his agreement.
Is there any possibility we could bring that down to half that time and then have a renewal after that? Like you're talking a few different councils in that time, and I just feel that.
Yep, that it's, council can approve it for a shorter period of time than the 20 years, to answer your question. But if you'd like a planning opinion about the merits of the 20 years versus 10 years, I can offer an opinion on that. Mr. McNichol is pretty young, and the reason he wants this is to be able to live on the farm close to the livestock that he's helping out with, and this is the best arrangement for him and his family to be able to live right on the farm. So to have to come back in 10 years, it's highly likely that he will need to come back in 10 years. And so we would be offering the exact same recommendation 10 years from now. And because the same, well, assuming the province doesn't amend its provisions about garden suites, I think it would just add extra red tape, so to speak, 10 years from now, when this is something that is permitted and can be useful, and there's mechanisms for the township to have the temporary dwelling removed when it's no longer needed for the people named. So if there's a problem with it, then there's a mechanism to get it removed.
So I'm just gonna let Clerk Lamb just follow up on that, Paul.
Through you, Bailey, to Councillor Heffer, to reiterate what Monica's saying, and to, if concern is around length, right? So it's the requirement that it has to be for farm use, right? So you can't just live in there for 20 years without it being related to farm labor, right? So for example, we recently had someone approach the township who was granted a garden suite for a 20-year period, but they were selling the property. So that's what Monica meant, where the specific names on that agreement who are signed, if it's not one of those specific names, it has to come back to council. So even though it's 20 years, there are, in the agreement that'll come forward after the appeal period, it is pretty set out what the conditions for living in that garden suite are.
Did you have another question, Paul?
No,
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, Reeve, I think it would be good to deal with every case in a different manner. The 20 years is a bother, personally, but in this case, I can see that it makes sense. Just because, you know, you're gonna be the next generation, and, you know, your parents are gonna need a place, you know, things like that, it just makes sense. So how about we look at each one and judge each one on its merit, and maybe there'll be one down the road that should be less time. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, I get, you know, my point is that, you know, if we have a period in time in which we've suggested that the maximum that you can have is 20 years, at least the applicant has that awareness going into it. If they wish to have the maximum, then they can ask for 20. If they want to ask for 5 and come back every 5 years, that's their prerogative. The argument is about having the timeline in there because if you don't have a timeline in there at all, then it doesn't become temporary. It'll just become another fixture of a building on a property that there's no regulations associated to it. So regardless of how many councils come from now, they have to look at the renewal based on the application at the time. They can't, just because it's in a renewal or an agreement, they can't just renew the agreement based on the fact that at the time of the day, that's what it was. So they have to look at every agreement the same as we have to look at every agreement, and everything's not a precedent. So, you know, in my mind, if the applicant wants to ask for 20 or ask for less than that, I just don't think it's in our best interest to dictate what the applicant so wishes. They know the regulation is 20. If they don't want it, they know it's going to be 20. So my mind is, if us as counselors are going to start dictating to residents about what length of period they can have places on their property for, I don't think that's the nature of the baby. I don't think that's the nature of the problem. The problem is it's a temporary establishment with guidelines in place that are prerogative that we have to make sure are maintained by an agreement. And the fact that it's an agreement, we know when that agreement comes up, it's going to be on the document of the council to have it come up for renewal. So not only will the applicant know that it's coming up for renewal, but also the council and staff at the time will know.
Thank you, Trevor. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, this is through you, Reeve, Donna. This is gonna be a silly question, but these things are assessed, right?
As far
And
as I
taxable.
know, we haven't had that many of them.
Yeah, it's only, this would be the second.
Yeah, so I could go back and check the other one, but my understanding is it would have some sort of assessment with it.
Should be, yeah.
We have to need a building permit one day.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Seeing nobody. Zoning bylaw procedure following a public meeting. This is a public meeting of the Council Township of North Huron, thus the decision of council may or may not be made this evening. If the bylaw passes by council, the clerk is required to send notice of the passing of the bylaw to all persons and agencies notified of this public meeting. There is a 20-day objection period from the time the notice passes of the bylaw has been mailed by first-class post, wherein submission letters of objections or support in respect to the passing of the bylaw will be received by the clerk. If an objection is received, the appeal lodges with the local planning appeal tribunal, and at that point, the township no longer has any control over the time factor involved. If the council does not pass the bylaw, the applicant may appeal to the local planning appeal tribunal. If the bylaw is passed and no objections are received within the objection period, the clerk certifies that the bylaw is in force and in effect of the date of the passing. And notices will be forwarded to the Huron County Planning and Development Department. My apologies. Okay, summary comments from you, girl.
Thank you. So this is a process for permitting a temporary home for up to 20 years. There's policies in North Huron's official plan regarding this. In reviewing this application, there were no concerns raised by agencies or neighbors, and it is the planning department's recommendation that the application for zoning bylaw amendment be approved.
that the Council Township of North Huron hereby approves the temporary use zoning bylaw amendment file number Z01-20 as it applies to south half of lot 34, concession 2, 83278 Monarch Line, East Wawanosh Ward, Township of North Huron. Do I have a mover? I have Christopher. I have Anita seconding. Last chance for comments. Seeing none, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Anita, could you give us a recommendation for number 2?
Sure, I'm gonna do that for her. In number 2 is that there were no comments received. So there were no public comments received on this application, so there was no effect on the decision. And no agency comments were received on this application, so there was no effect on the decision.
Numbers
2.
2A and 2B. Or not. With the temporary use of zoning bylaw amendment file Z01-20 as it applies to south half of lot 34, concession 2, 83278 Monarch Line, East Wawanosh Ward, Township of North Huron. Be 2A and 2B. Do I have a mover?
So moved.
I have Trevor, seconder. I have Anita. All in favor? Carries. Thank you very kindly. Okay.
Thanks very much, Monica.
Thanks, Monica.
Yeah. I'm gonna stick around for 2 more things.
Jeez, busy day for you.
Yeah.
7.1, the Clerk's Department, 7.1.1. This is a PL 2020-12 site plan agreement with JNS Holdings Limited. I think I'm gonna read this and get a move, and then we'll have Monica, you wanna speak to this?
Yes, please.
Okay. That the Council of Township of North Huron hereby approves the S&J Elman Holding Limited proposed development as it applies to 346, 348, 352, 354 Mill Street and 360, 362, 366, 368 Mill Street in Blythe, Township of North Huron, and further the council deems the adoption of the bylaw number 62-2020 and bylaw number 63-2020 to be a time-sensitive and approves an exception from the section 19.1 of the procedural bylaw allowing for a bylaw number 62-2020 and bylaw number 63-2020 to be adopted at the October 5th council meeting. Do I have a mover? I have Paul, I have Kevin seconding. Monica, it's your turn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reeve. This is an application for site plan approval, site plan agreement, and Mr. Eelman is in attendance tonight. Planning Department is pleased to be able to provide comments on a development like this. This is proposing 2 4-unit multiple attached dwellings in Blythe. The property is already zoned to permit this type of development, and the Planning Department has been involved in previous planning applications that paved the way for this development. So this is the final planning approval site plan, getting down to the nitty-gritty of the site-related issues. This property is designated residential in the township's official plan. The properties in question front along Mill Street in Blythe. The drawings have been reviewed by the township's development review team, and that includes Huron County Public Works, the Planning Department, and members of North Huron staff. The slide is very faint, I apologize. This is just a couple screenshots that I took from WebGIS. So all you're seeing here is the location of the 2 subject properties on Mill Street. So I'll move on to the next slide, which shows you the layout of the 2 4-unit multiple attached dwelling buildings. So I believe what council has in front of it are 2 site plan agreements with identical site plans attached to them that look like this site plan up on the board here. So the plan itself shows the location of the buildings, the entrances off of Mill Street. Issues such as lot grading and drainage have been addressed to the satisfaction of township staff and engineers. When I review this drawing, the stats that are located in that table to the right illustrate that the proposed development meets all of the setbacks, lot area requirements, landscaping requirements of the township zoning bylaw. So in our department's review and the other agencies that reviewed this, there were no concerns, or any concerns that we did have now been addressed. So it is our recommendation that this application for site plan be approved and the 2 site plan agreements be signed for the development.
So I open it up to council now for questions, comments, concerns. Go ahead, Ms.
I'm just
Henderson.
wondering if those are the same ones as already there, like on Wellington and King Street. Is that the same type of building, or is it different? Or
Are they all twins?
are they all the same?
With council's permission, we'll let Jonathan speak.
So they will be exactly the same as what is there, with the exception of the ones that are there on King and Wellington are slab on grade. This second set of buildings will have full unfinished basements at this time. They may be finished, but they will have full basements. So identical layout, identical look. There'll be a little bit of elevation difference because of the basement and wanting some windows into the basement rather than the slab on grade. There'll be the difference of a pressure treated porch deck at the back instead of concrete slab. And other than that, unless you knew, you wouldn't be able to tell any difference. Same color scheme, same overall appearance.
Thank you, Jonathan. Paul?
Oh, no, I just-
Oh, sorry, Kevin?
Through you, Rafe, this is to Jonathan as well. The servicing connections, are they already on site now for the next section of proposed, or will the Mill Street be excavated to have?
Well, I figured I would have to answer this question. So the services are not in for these buildings. We actually had to do an ECA application for sewer extension on Mill Street because it didn't quite come all the way to Wellington. So that's been done and approved. We have all of our servicing applications in and approved pending this meeting. What we did last year, we don't want to do again because it wasn't ideal. We put all the services and everything into the project in October. We got caught in some bad weather in November, couldn't get it paved, and then had to sit unpaved till spring. We all know what happened this spring. And I don't think you have to ask too many people. Finding a paver is a very difficult job. So Stu Moffat and I have been working together on that. We do have somebody committed to doing it, it just hasn't happened yet. But in light of that, we've made the decision to put off servicing until the spring. So we're going to, pending approval at this meeting, we're still going to dig right away, put in foundations, have it ready to put up this winter, and then April 1st, dig into the road, connect everything, and be able to put it all back together in a shorter amount of time.
Jonathan, if I could just follow up that, only because Uncle Bert is getting a lot of complaints. I'm not really his uncle. Are the streets paved now in Blythe that were up?
So I think it was probably June when we decided that we couldn't, because originally this process was gonna happen in June or July. Get everything in the ground, sewer extensions, sewers, everything by September 1st and pave everything all at once. What happened this spring, put everything back. We're having this meeting now, not 3 months ago. And so in June, Stu and I talked and decided, okay, we gotta get these streets paved before we can consider this stuff because it's not ready. So then we went about trying to find somebody, reached out to the 5 approved paving companies. There was a few on the list that weren't exactly high up on the list. And I had a hard time getting someone. Finally heard back. We have a contract signed with Arts. They said mid-September. It's October 5th. and it's not paved. I called them multiple times in the last 2 weeks, and I'm on the short list, whatever that means.
Mhm.
I do have a backup plan. Stu has hired Smith's Paving to do some paving in town here, and has them booked for 2 days, but only needs them for 1. So if Arts has not pulled through for us by, I believe it's Tuesday or Wednesday next week, when Smith's is in North Huron, Smith's is going to look after it for us.
Okay, okay,
So
thank you.
either way, by the end of next week, it'll be paid.
Thank you very kindly for that. Yes, Rick?
Through you, Reeve, in regards to Mill Street, it was slated for a rebuild at one time. Then it got rescheduled or not done. So is that infrastructure in there to be able to handle all this? It's already in now?
I'm not sure if Monica wants to handle that
I
question.
don't think I could speak to that, I don't have any knowledge about the infrastructure.
So you get, I remember all the piping sitting in the one parking lot, then it was rescheduled and removed.
Could we have a follow-up from staff to come back and report, with a report? Okay, right. Yep, go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, just a follow-up to that. So Mill Street has been on the docket for, I would say, well, I've been on council now 6 years. It was probably on the docket when before I was even on council. So it has been a significant issue with funding. That project is millions. So that has been the delay in that project. I don't know whether and again, I think that's where I know Public Works will be a better idea, is that whether it's a replacement because of the infrastructure underneath, or it has to do with some other concerns that they had at the time about Mill Street. Because I know there was an issue with Mill Street connecting to the Blythe Creek or something to that effect. So, you know, I don't know I can't remember all the details, but I know that project has been delayed. It actually has been quoted 3 times, and it's been quoted significantly higher than what we could budget, and then we had to stop it because we could not raise taxes by 20%. So that's really where it has been. But I think staff.
So now, so you read now, so now we're adding to it. I'm just curious.
Yeah. So we will have a report before council. The CAO has documented that, and we'll find out what's going on there, my friend. Okay, where was I anyway? We are.
You have a mover.
I have a mover and a seconder. Any more questions or comments?
The only question I did have is when Monica had wrote this report, and it has to do with the servicing part, is Jamie had asked for updated items relating to servicing to be placed on a new copy of the site plan. Has that been received?
I believe we have all that now, yeah.
You do have, okay. No, that's good. Thank you.
We have a mover and seconder. I'm not seeing any more hands. All in favor? Carries. Go make us some more tax relief.
Do my best.
I had a guy knocking on my door today wanting to pay my driveway.
I'm pretty sure they're not on the list of approved.
He didn't.
7.1.2, PL 2020-13, site plan agreement with Diamond Concrete Inc. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby approves the proposed development as it applies to 766 Queen Street, Plan 173, Part BLKF, Blythe, Township of North Huron, County of Huron. And further, that the council deems the adoption of the bylaw number 65-2020 to be time sensitive and approves the exception of section 19.1 of the procedural bylaw, allowing the bylaw number 65-2020 to be adopted at the October 5th, 2020 council meeting. Do I have a mover? I have Mr. McBurney. Do I have a seconder? I have Mr. Heffer. Monica, your turn again.
Thank you. This is another site plan agreement. It's also in the town of Blythe. This is Diamond Concrete Limited. Council will be familiar with the application because, or the development proposal, because council approved some minor variances to allow the 2 self-storage buildings. So this is the site plan that will implement the development. So it's 2 self-storage buildings. The zone is highway commercial. The land use designation is also highway commercial, fronting along Queen Street in Blythe on the north end of town. The drawings that were submitted have been reviewed by the township's development team, including Huron County Public Works, the Planning Department, and North Huron staff. So this is a slide showing the location of the subject property in its undeveloped state, and this slide shows the orientation and layout of the property. The two self-storage buildings will be parallel to one another and parallel to Queen Street. This is a facility where people can rent units to store their personal items, furniture, and that type of thing. Some of the issues that we've been back and forth with the developer on that are now satisfied include issues like access, landscaping, lot grading and drainage, parking, ensuring that the sites are accessible for people with mobility issues, and all of the issues that have been raised by staff and planning department have now been addressed to our satisfaction. So this site plan from GM Blue Plan would, and the agreement that goes with it would be recommended for approval. So those would be my comments, if there's any other questions.
Thank you very much. Comments, questions, concerns? Go ahead, Trevor.
Monica, just to follow up to your report here where it says there was one outstanding item with Huron County as it relates to runoff of water.
Yeah,
is it still
it's my
unresolved?
understanding, Dwayne can confirm this, but it's my understanding that a revision to the drawing was made and that Huron County Public Works is now satisfied.
Okay, thank you sorry, Reeve, and the only other question I had is there, because I couldn't really tell from the drawing, obviously, because it's very detailed, how is lighting? Where is the lighting? Is the lighting on the building?
Yes.
So it's not going to impact, because obviously the lighting, how it's facing,
Yeah.
is not going to impact the rear setback of the properties that are along.
Great question.
So
Yes.
it's not a
So,
pole.
Yep, so I'll maybe just make an analogy for you, or a comparison.
Okay.
So, a big site plan that I approved in Central Huron, where I also work, was the new OPP station on the edge of Clinton.
Okay.
So in that case, they have a big, you could kind of picture the big wide parking lot that's in behind the building. So in that case, in order to provide the illumination needed for the safety of that parking lot, they need lighting poles. And when you have a lighting plan like that, then we, especially for a big parking lot, will require them to provide us with I want to get the word right, it's a fancy word like photo, it's got the word photo in it, but it just means like a lighting plan. So on those lighting plans, it'll show the pools of light and where they get, and the thing that we're looking for is that there's coverage of light for the whole parking lot, but it isn't spilling onto like neighboring residential properties. In this case, you hit the nail on the head. The lighting will be right on the building and it'll be angled down. So it's not going to be a situation where we have large lighting poles that are shedding light over a large area. It's more focused. So there will be a sign which might have a bit of light associated with it, but we worked with them to get the sign on the north side of the property so it's not as close to the residential. So hope that answers your question.
It does, thank you, Monica.
I'm gonna go to Kevin next.
Yeah,
And
thank
then-
you, through you, Reeve. I know I asked when the first, it came to council, my question was the people living next to it, were they allowed to comment? And your answer was that, no, it was up to the person that owned the property, not the people that are renting there. I'd just like to be on the record saying that still, it's the people that are living right 20 feet from their backyard, their porch in the backyard, haven't been consulted, and I think that's, should be addressed sometime when you're dealing with that many people living that close to that much lighting. It was just more of a comment. But
Sure, I don't mind speaking to it, just for clarity. In a site plan approval, it doesn't have the same level of public consultation process as the other things that we were dealing with tonight, like a public meeting. So under a site plan approval, it's circulated to agencies for their comments, but it's not circulated to neighbors for comments. And it also isn't, the decision that council makes tonight is not appealable by neighbors. So at this level of detail, the principle of development, that this can be developed for a commercial use, has already been established. It's just the smaller, finer detailed issues that get hammered out in the site plan, and generally those are addressed through the staff review.
Thank you, Monica. I'll go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, through you, Reeve. Yeah, I was also worried about the illumination and the brightness, the lumens, because I just know we're gonna get the folks that live there. It's great that it's gonna be directed down, but if it's way too bright, we're gonna hear about it. We're gonna hear about it anyways, so, really stress to the Diamond people that, for them to think about those people, you know, sure, because the owner's gonna be told, then the owner will be coming to us, so, really mitigate it as the best you can. And my other thought was, because of drainage and what have you, how high, what's the elevation? What's the finished elevation gonna be? Because we can't tell from the picture at all.
I don't have that information at the top of my head, but on a plan like this, what they will show you is all of the grading, and the engineers are looking to make sure that water is shutting off of the property properly, and it has been reviewed by the township's engineer and Huron County Public Works, and they were satisfied. So I'm not sure, I know that's not exactly answering your question about what the final elevation is, but it has been reviewed for drainage issues.
Yeah.
I don't know if, is that what you were concerned about for elevation?
Well, my concern is that, because they're 20 feet away, are we gonna have these the storage units way up in their face, or are they gonna be down? Like, that's what I was thinking of, where it's gonna start, and how we don't know how tall these buildings are gonna be.
Okay.
I know what units look like, and I'm hoping they look the same. It's gonna be gated, right? Fenced and gated?
There'll be a fence and a planting strip on all of the sides of the property that abut the residential property, and there's a single entrance. But I'm not sure if that I haven't seen anything to say that would be a gate at the entrance.
Okay, I'm hoping, sorry, I'm hoping that there won't be equipment, machinery stored there.
No, there's no outdoor storage.
Good.
Okay, so not seeing any more questions or hands going up, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you, everybody.
7.1.3. 7.1.3 CL 2020-23 additional downtown Main Street revitalization fund reallocation. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from the clerk dated October 5th, 2020 regarding additional downtown Main Street revitalization fund reallocations for information purposes. And further, that council approves the reallocation of funds as set out in the staff report number CL-2020-23 presented by Clerk Lamb at the October 5th, 2020 regular council meeting. And further, that the Director of Finance be authorized to make the necessary changes to allocate the funds to as set out by the staff report CL 2020-23. Do I have a mover? I have Chris. I have a seconder with Rick. Carson, could you speak to this, please?
Sure. Thank you, Your Worship. So this report's pretty straightforward. It's almost a follow-up report to the one I presented in July about the downtown Main Street revitalization funds. So just to remind council, so in May of 2020, we were required to do our final reporting for the downtown Main Street revitalization funds that we received from AMO. At that time, they had mentioned that all funds were required to be, all the projects that the funds went to were required to be complete by March 31st deadline. However, the reports came back to AMO, and then they realized that there was a bunch of municipalities in the same situation where they had used CIP programs and those projects could not have been completed by March. So just as a reminder, an extension request was asked for from AMO, and OMAFRA granted an extension to October 31st of this year. And so we actually have confirmation that as of today that at this point no further extension request has been received by AMO from OMAFRA at this time. So basically it's almost a use it or lose it scenario, as any of the downtown Main Street revitalization funds that are not expended are required to go back to AMO to give back to OMAFRA. So with the October 31st deadline approaching, staff reached out to the various businesses who had still not submitted their invoices under our CIP project, and what we found out was, for varying reasons, there was 2 different projects that were no longer going forward. And so as a result, in order for this money to get expended, we're required to reallocate $1,870.82. And so because of the way our community improvement plan was developed, we can't pay out projects that have already been completed. So this is a standard requirement of almost every community improvement plan that I've seen. So which means that we would have to expend the funds through the municipal infrastructure stream under the downtown Main Street revitalization funds. And so as council is aware, the town hall accessibility renovations, the accessibility and COVID-19 renovations for the front counter here at town hall, they do meet the municipal infrastructure stream criteria. So the recommendation of this report is that $1,870.82 be reallocated to the town hall front counter renovations project, in order to make sure that that money gets spent and does not have to go back to AMO and then OMAFRA.
Thank you, Chris. Questions, comments, concerns? Pretty straightforward. I have a mover and a seconder. Seeing no, go ahead, Chris.
Just because I don't know, should the amount be mentioned in the motion or not?
The motion says as set out in the report, so basically
Okay.
we would just refer to the report for the totals.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. 7.1.4, 2020-24 temporary relocation of the North Huron Council Chambers. That the Council Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the clerk dated October 5th, 2020 regarding the temporary relocation of the North Huron Council Chambers during COVID-19 for information. And further, that the council agrees to relocate all future meetings of council committees and boards to the Wingham Town Hall Theater until further notice. And further, that 2020 council agrees to temporarily suspend the requirement to hold a minimum of 1 town hall public meeting per year due to the physical distancing and maximum capabilities required at because of COVID-19. Do I have a mover? I have Paul and I have Rick seconding. Okay, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, any questions, concerns, thoughts? We're wondering.
Do you want me to just,
Let's let Carson speak to it first.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, as council is aware, at the August 12th meeting, which was our first meeting back in person, I presented a report that outlined the Bill 197 legislative changes around electronic participation. And at that time, there was discussion that, to quickly summarize it, the discussion was that the electronic meeting provisions should be kept for declared state of emergencies, but basically staff should make an effort to look into different council chambers options given the current size of our council chambers. So staff had started to undertake that research pre-COVID-19, as we had budgeted $50,000 for accessibility renovation or accessibility and office space investigations to address the growing concern for office space in town hall. So what you'll see in the report, there's a number of different sites that were investigated, some pre-COVID-19, some as early as last week, to see whether there was a potential option for either a temporary or a permanent council chambers location. So the first one that myself and the former director of public works went to was the Wingham Library. So just the south building, or the south room of the Wingham Library building. We looked at that pre-COVID-19, and what we found was there was a bit of an echo, which could easily be addressed, but in a pre-COVID-19 environment, you could definitely make that work as a council chambers. However, given the social distancing requirements, you'd be no better off locating there than here right now. The second one we went to was the Knights of Columbus boardroom. Similar situation. You could make it work as a council chambers in a pre-COVID-19 environment, but again, the overall dimensions of the room are similar to council chambers, so it wouldn't really address the need for social distancing. So those were the two that we investigated pre-COVID-19, and then last week myself and an employee from Continued IT went and investigated 3 different options. One was the Belgrave Community Hall, and what we found there was there's major internet concerns. You definitely wouldn't be able to run a council meeting with the live streaming and the minutes taking requirements, and everyone else has their iPads out. You'd need a significant upgrade there, and Continued had concern whether internet coverage right now from the providers in that area, you could even get sufficient coverage. And audio concerns were also an issue, so you would have to do some sort of soundproofing so that the live streaming would not have that constant echo. Just another point to note, so with that building, we don't currently operate the building, and in order for us to book that building, it's usually on we usually pay a rental fee per use of that building, so if we were to use that building, we would have to enter into some sort of arrangement to upgrade the internet and also for the usage of that building. So obviously, with that considered not an ideal option for us at this time. The second one we went to last week was the Blythe Community Center, so the upstairs hall of the Blythe Community Center. And so the following things were identified by Continuit, one being similar situation as Belgrave. You have internet concerns with that building. It would definitely need an upgrade. However, Continuit was able to confirm that we could upgrade the internet at that building to get the coverage that we needed. There was also audio concerns, and this was largely related to the furnace running. So we did test the furnace to see what it would sound like, and Dave Cook had reiterated that it would likely be a problem. So in the winter months, you wouldn't be able to hear each other in the same room, let alone live stream. That's a tough one to address right there. And then the other thing is you might need, if you were to locate there, you might need some lighting upgrades. So while this is definitely not an ideal space either for a temporary chambers, there was also talk of whether we could repurpose this space for childcare services and expansion to Blythe. So now we know that it wouldn't necessarily suffice as a chambers, but we can move forward further on those investigations for childcare services. The last one we went to was the Wingham Town Hall Theater. So it's definitely the strongest internet out of those 3 buildings. So I think Continuit said that here you're at 100 to 1, where I think Belgrave and Blythe were around 2 to 1 or 3 to 1. So significant difference. Basically, Continuit said you'd likely have to upgrade the Wi-Fi so that anyone who's not hardwired in would have a better experience, but it would be a minimal upgrade. Also, live streaming is possible with minimal concerns. Basically, what they would have to do is just install a couple of additional internet ports, and the room is already designed to have sufficient audio because of the theater performances. So other comments from staff related to potential relocation to the Wingham Town Hall Theater. So the theater is currently closed for rentals due to COVID, and likely by the time rentals are allowed to operate in the theater again, chances are North Huron would no longer need such a large space for their council chambers. So it makes use of a facility that's being underused right now, which is a shame due to all the renovations that were just put into it. Also, with the seating up in the theater, the kind of front center section and the majority of the seating is wood seating, making it very simple to clean and disinfect. There are seats up there that are fabric, but what we could do is we could caution tape those off, make sure everyone's only sitting in the wood seating to help it be cleaned with ease. And then the last point would be that as council's aware, you have a separate entrance, right? To segregate from the rest of town hall, so what we would do is open the south set of doors and for council chambers, and we could easily allow the public to enter in through there. And that separation is key with the requirements of COVID-19. So based on all that and the investigations we conducted, the recommendation in this report is that we would relocate all council, committee, and board meetings upstairs to the wing and town hall theater until further notice. And ideally that would take effect as soon as we could implement those changes. So the other piece to the report is the town hall public meeting. So as council's aware, usually we hold one town hall public meeting per year. Last year was in Blythe at Memorial Hall, and due to the numbers associated with town hall public meetings, as council is aware, they're definitely more attended than your standard regular council meeting. So even though we could accommodate better, basically staff's of the view that we want to do everything we can to reduce large sizes of meeting or large congregations, and the town hall public meeting is not a statutory requirement. North Huron offers it as an added opportunity to provide public comments and to get feedback. However, in light of COVID-19, staff's recommendation would also be to temporarily suspend that requirement, and then 2021 we would evaluate the landscape based on COVID-19 and see where we're at then, and whether it would make sense to go ahead with it. Financial impact. So today a quote did come through from Continuit to undertake that work, and basically we would cover those costs using the COVID-19 grant funding that was received by the province. So I guess in the other thing to note, so in the future consideration section of the report, you'll see, so while staff are of the view that we have a temporary option, we still lack that permanent option if we were to relocate council chambers out of this room right now, but we would definitely need to do further research as to whether there's a viable option.
Thank you, Carson. I have a mover, don't I?
Yep.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay, I'm gonna open it up to questions, comments, concerns. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, through you, Reeve. Carson, how would you arrange this, like up on the stage with plastic tables and wooden chairs?
Yeah, so through
Hope not.
through your worship, so we could design the stage in a similar setup to what we have now, right? So because it's not used, we have the option to basically have a permanent setup there for a little while. So we would develop a similar council chambers to what we have here. Delegations we would have on either the other side of the stage on the floor, and we would set it up with likely microphones, so that hearing is not a concern.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Through your Reeve to Carson. During the discussions to revitalize the front entrance and make it accessible, the thought of closing the elevator off for being able to reach up to this main floor, that doesn't pose any problems with using that for upstairs?
Through your worship to Councillor Falconer. So the intention of those renovations was that we would build off that with mobility ramps, right, for this side of the building, with the elevator being specifically designated for the theater. So it works quite well if we were to use that space, because we would. If I'm not sure if that answers your question.
No, just would it have to be like wired off so that the elevator wouldn't be accidentally used to come into to this first floor?
Nope. So through your worship, so we have the ability to segregate this half of town hall from the rest. So even if they were to get on this floor, they would still be on the other half of the building.
Thank you.
Right, Paul?
Yeah, through you, Reeve, would it be permissible for the committee of councils, like to have their meetings up there? Let's say I'm just talking on behalf of the museum committee when they start up, would that be?
Through your worship to Councillor Hefford, the expectation would be that all our committees of council and our boards of council would meet up there as well, which is definitely a benefit right now. For example, the Wingham BIA is most of the places they meet are currently closed, right? So they've been meeting in the council chambers. Their numbers are quite significant too, so they would be able to make better use of the space for sure.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Anita.
Yeah, would you be able to have closed meetings there as well?
Through your worship, yes, we would ensure that we were able to have closed meetings there as well.
Anyone else? Not seeing anyone, I call the motion, all in favor? Carries. Oh, 7.1.5, notice of retirement. Barb Black, Administrative Assistant Deputy Clerk, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accepts with regret the retirement of Barb Black, Administrative Assistant Deputy Clerk, effective December 21st, 2020. Do I have a mover? I have Anita, and I have Trevor seconding. Questions or comments? Well, I'll start with, I think, as long as I can remember, Barb's been answering me when I came in through the front doors, so it's gonna be quite a change. And I won't give my years away of that. I'm sure,
Too late.
and I'm sure Barb appreciates it.
Too late.
Anyone else? I just wanna congratulate Barb on her retirement. She has been a real trooper for many, many, many years. She's been dedicated to, first of all, Wingham, actually first of all, East Wawanosh. I couldn't get that out, East Wawanosh, and then she came over with the amalgamation to North Huron and has been with us ever since. So she has a long, long history of lots of things that goes on, and if she does decide to write a book about them, I hope she takes a little mercy on this council. Go ahead, Chris.
I'm just wondering, I'm not sure what you do in these situations, but it would be nice to send her card, flowers, things like that.
Mm.
Yeah.
We'll do something as a staff on behalf of the municipality.
Yeah, for sure.
A little different than what we did for Sean.
Yeah.
I would think so, yes. Yeah, I'm sure, and we also have the last one too. Looking at her and I can't think of her name. Okay, did I call a motion on that one?
No, not yet.
Okay, do I have a motion?
You have a mover second.
You need to vote.
Sorry,
Call the vote.
I meant to call the vote. It's good, it passes. Oh, you gotta love it. 7.2.1, Finance Department, 2020-24, Section 357, Tax Refunds. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the Director of Finances dated October 5th, 2020 regarding tax refund under Section 357, -1D1. I believe that's an I or an L, not a 1. I, okay. Of the Municipal Act for the amount of $2,277.39. And further, that the Council Township of North Huron hereby approves adjustments to the collector's roll and recommended by the Director of Finance in this report dated October 5th, 2020. Do I have a mover? I have Paul, I have Kevin seconding. Donna, do you want to speak to this?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have received 2 applications under section 357 for tax refunds. The first application is a result of a barn being demolished in 2020 due to a fire, and the house on that property was demolished due to poor condition. And the second application in Blythe was the result of a house being torn down and the land is now vacant. So under the Municipal Act, under section 357, council is required to hold a meeting, and this meeting meets those requirements. Notification of this meeting was sent to both applicants, and so if they were in attendance tonight, they would be asked if they wish to speak. And as part of the correspondence they were sent, they were informed that staff were recommending to council that both these applications be approved. So the property in East Wawanosh, the demolition will result in a tax refund of $1,572.47, and the property in Blythe on Mill Street will result in a tax refund of $704.97. And each year we budget for this type of application. We have a number of applications where We have to provide relief if all the criteria is met, and so we budget 36,600 this year, and to date, we've spent 5,685.85. So are there any further questions?
Go ahead, Trevor.
Just a comment, I think since I've been on council, we have budgeted probably close to $150,000 in this particular instance, and never have we even reached 10 every year. I would really like to take a hard look at what this budget needs to be. This is money that we budgeted as taxation that goes out, so it's money that we budgeted. I don't know where the excess. I'm assuming the excess goes in the operating reserve, and when we don't use it. But I think we would need to. I think we ultimately need to look at a better solution as to how we budget. The fact that we are the lowest taxable assessment in Huron County, that would require a significant adjustment to get the $30,000. Is my comment. So I think if we could look at a better way or a better scenario as to how we budget that part, I think there could be, $15,000 of that money could be easily budgeted somewhere else and utilized more effectively than in this particular area.
So I think staff would take that as a recommendation. Go ahead, Donna.
Yeah. Yes, and that's true. The other thing though that happens is each year it's very difficult to budget for how many supplementals and how many write-offs due to assessment appeals. So what's been happening over the years is that any surplus we have in here is more than used up. There's none that ever gets to go into reserves as a result of this category, because the write-offs, and in fact we had a huge write-off here for a farm property that was about $80,000 this year due to that property being returned on the roll as residential, and then they went through AgriCorp and were able to be it returned to farms. So that's what has been happening over the years. One has offset the other, although this year we're far short on the budget because of this other write-off. So that doesn't pertain to this, but just to let you know that we haven't been able to put money into reserves as a result of this category the last couple of years. But certainly we'll talk about it again in a bit more detail at budget time for sure.
Thank you.
Don, if I could just follow up on that, you said that somebody had residential land and they turned it back into farmland?
No, so what happens is, sometimes through paperwork, when a property is sold, or there could be any sort of, there's a variety of reasons. So when we get the assessment roll and prepare our taxes, the property, farmland is normally the ones, it's returned on the roll at the full residential rate. And so then they appeal it and go through AgriCorp, and then it gets returned to the farmland rate.
Okay.
But by then, we've already set our budget based on the higher rate. So I do estimate for that, but you just never know how many properties are going to fall into that category.
I understand how that went then. Residential land, back to farmland. I get that. Anyone else? Seeing none, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Recreation has no report tonight. Public Works has no report tonight. Fire Department, 7.5.1, 2020-06 replacement of the 2000 pumper rescue at Blythe Station. That the Council Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the Fire Chief dated October 5th, 2020 regarding replacement of the 2000 pumper rescue at the Blythe Station. And further, that the Council authorizes the Fire Chief to send out the request for proposal RFP for the new pumper recruit apparatus for the Blythe Station. And further, that the Fire Chief is directed to present a report at a future council meeting regarding options for the replacement of the 2000 pumper rescue at the Blythe Station. Do I have a mover? I have Paul, seconded by Kevin. Questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead, Kevin, and then over to Chris.
3-year to
Oh, you know what, guys? I did it again. I so apologize. Let's let Marty speak to it first. Getting ahead of myself here.
Okay, thank you, Reeve. So the 2000 pumper was due to replace this year. We did defer it to 2021 to build up the funds in the reserve. All I'm asking for tonight is approval to send out the RFP. I'm not asking for approval for purchasing. okay, just to make that clear. And as mentioned, I will do a further, follow-up report and give you guys all the options that we come up with for replacement. I think that's all I have for my report, so I can answer questions.
Thank you kindly. Sorry, Kevin, go ahead now.
Through you, to Marty. Being a chief over several different fire departments, would there ever be any consideration or any savings in pool buying, you know, if other stations needed, just what do you call it, when you buy more, you get a better price, but any thought, I'm just asking your opinion on that.
Yeah,
whether
so
there would be any
through you,
chance.
Reeve. I think I've heard that if you, and I know big cities do this when they purchase multiple vehicles. The trouble with that is getting them all on the rotation that we have. I don't need 2 or 3 or 4 in the same year. We have them on a rotation where we don't need that many in the same year. If we do get lucky at a time, we would look into that. And for us, it would be 2, maybe 3 vehicles, and I'm not sure how much of a savings it would be, but it's something to look into for sure.
Because there was just a couple of new trucks purchased, was it not in the other stations?
Here in East?
Yeah. Did you cover?
No, our last one was in 2018, I
I
believe.
don't think of another station.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Chris.
Through you, Reeve. Marty, you've got equipment scheduled to retire. You know, that's good on paper, but to me, doesn't warrant it. And in some cases, it definitely would. So is this pumper that we're talking about, is it on its last legs?
Yes, it
You're
is.
nodding.
Through you, Reeve.
Yes.
See, that's things we don't know.
We have recently found out that the pump is leaking very bad. So it would take a considerable rebuild of the pump. And when I say considerable, that's probably $20,000–$30,000 worth. So it would be, once it gets to a certain age, it starts failing in all areas. So it would take a considerable amount to repair it. And quite frankly, that's just the beginning. Once it gets past your 20-year mark, they really start going downhill. Plus, we try to stick with the industry standard. The NFPA standard is the industry standard, and that's who sets out the replacement schedules for these apparatus. Being a frontline truck, you certainly want to make sure that it is reliable when it's needed.
I guess my other thought is, through you, Reeve, what's next? What's next on the schedule?
So yeah,
Be nice to be reminded.
I included in my report the replacement schedule. So we have, in 2021, we have the replacement of this engine, or this fire truck. 2023, we have some SCBA bottles that need replaced, the backs. So I've included that in with this. And then the ladder is an unknown. It's a specialty piece that they purchased. And that one is an unknown, depending on how long we can keep it going. So that would be, and I don't have a date on that, but after that, then 2028 is the next replacement.
Yeah, because this would potentially deplete
Yes.
your reserves. Yeah.
And something that will be discussed in our agreement discussions with the the other municipalities is bumping that annual amount that we put away up a little bit due to the rising cost of these vehicles. These vehicles, just in the past, I'm gonna say 10
7
years.
months.
Well, the past 10 years, they've doubled in price. So a pumper rescue that we're looking to tender to get proposals on, just in 2010, Seaforth purchased one for $305,000. So they've doubled in that amount of time.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Paul.
Yes, through you, Reeve. Marty, you say you're having a bit of leakage now with this. Is it gonna last without putting a lot of dollars into it by the time you process this?
We hope that we can Band-Aid it through the winter. Here's the scenario that could happen. If it's a very, very cold night and it's leaking while they're traveling to the sea, that's when the pump freezes up on us. So.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? I'm gonna add a couple of things. Number one, you've heard me harp about asset management. Having said that, COVID-19 did strike, and as Marty's pointed out, he's working towards his asset management. To go back over to what Chris asked, we now know that in those years, so we need to start financing for those years. So when we sit down to draw a contract up with our partners, we know the equipment we have to buy makes it much easier to get a firm price on what we need to charge our customers for service. And if they're not willing to pay for it, then the truck's $1 million. They can buy their own. So it's very important to have the asset management move forward for all of the town, but I'm very happy to see that. Marty, could you also have that same conversation with our partners to let them know that we're looking at spending that kind of money, and that, again, same conversation we just had, that the prices are high, which costs more for everybody. So when contracts come up, they understand, and let them know that we're not letting our fleet deplete as we move forward. Anyone else? Not seeing any, oh, go ahead, Trevor.
The only thing, the only part of this is that, when we talk about asset management plans are great in the know. So when you, prime example is we built a fire hall and it cost us X dollars. We know that fire hall is gonna last us 35 years or 40 years or whatever the case may be. In contrast to what Marty's just saying, over the last 10 years, the price of a truck has went up $250% almost, basically, if you go to the highest, the $800,000, if you think about that. That becomes very difficult to mitigate, because you're budgeting on assumption on historical cost, and then let's no make mistake about it, COVID-19 has caused a price increase on every piece of machinery, every bolt, every screw, everything in the entire world, and it has also caused issue on delivery. So, you think you're gonna get something in 8 to 10 months, you may not get it for 12 to 14, because of the structure and what people have been down for 7 months. Some of these places were closed for 7 months. So I think we have to be careful about, using historical costs as a baseline for asset management. And I only use that because if we use historical costs on some of these pieces of equipment that are 15, 20, 25-year lifelines, we're gonna get to that 15 or 20-year lifeline, and we're not gonna have got enough money saved because of the timeline that we're talking about. So I think we have to be careful. I think staff needs to be careful. Council needs to be careful too, in the sense that we have to understand from a council perspective is that we're asking for a policy for asset management, and that is the plan, and that's the policy. Staff are responsible to do the plan, not us. So we just need to make sure that we're not holding staff account to dollars that they can't impact, because they really have a hard time when you send in an RFP and somebody comes in and you think, whoa, 10 years ago we got 300,000, well now I've got an RFP for 650. You can't really fault the staff for the fact that where the market has been. So I think we just need to be careful with that.
Yeah, just a quick reply on that, Trev. Asset management's a living document, and each year the prices do change, and if the and we have not had a chance to talk about asset management or see any. Each year they're adjusted by inflation and adjusted by pricing. As you say, you would never let it go for 20 years, because I totally agree with everything you guys are saying. But it is, what I'm looking for, what we should be looking for is a living document. There's no way in God's earth we could ever fix all the buildings and all the trucks and all the equipment we have based on an asset management. But what it does do is it gives you a ballpark figure to head for, and then you can say, yes, we actually need 600 more houses in North Huron to come up with those kind of numbers. It gives you justification of what you're doing. But an asset management is a living document that should be reviewed by your staff on a regular basis. And when it comes time for year-end financing, you would punch in the differences, and it is more work, we understand that. Yep, okay, so anyway, we'll have that chat another day. So, I have movers for that. Anyone else? Not seeing any, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. CAO 7.8.1. That the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from the CAO dated October 5th, 2020 regarding the front office restructuring proposal. And further, that the council approves the attached job descriptions for the clerk's administration assistant position, receptionist administration assistant position, and a revised public works administration assistant position, effective November 16th, 2020. And further, the council eliminates the assistant to the CAO position and an administrative assistant deputy clerk position, effective November 16th, 2020. And further, the council approves Amanda Piskorski as the, sorry if I said that wrong, Amanda?
That's right.
Okay, great. Clerk's administrative assistant, effective November 16th, 2020. And further, the council authorizes the staff to proceed with the recruitment process for the receptionist administrative assistant position. That's it. And, do I have a mover? I have Anita, and seconded by Rick. Open for questions, comments, and concerns. You know what? We'll let Dwayne speak to this first. You're slipping. You used to tell me all anyway.
So, as council's aware, Barb Black, Administrative Assistant Deputy Clerk, has submitted her letter of retirement effective December 21st of this year. And staff retirements and resignations provide council with an opportunity to evaluate the need for a position, the duties and responsibilities of position, as well as the organizational structure. So myself, the clerk, the director of finance, and the director of public works and facilities, in consultation with the three front staff positions, being the public works administrative assistant, the administrative deputy clerk, and the assistant to the CAO. Basically, we received their input, we reviewed everything, and have determined and identified a need for a receptionist administrative assistant position. So essentially, right now, front counter services are equally shared by the administrative assistant, deputy clerk, the assistant to the CAO, and the public works administrative assistant. Generally speaking, the approach has worked well. It's allowed for the sharing of workloads and expertise. It's highlighted the benefits of teamwork. It's encouraged and promoted cross-training. It's presented staff with new challenges. It's also offered us some flexibility for staff coverage. On the flip side, some of the duties and responsibilities have become less unclear. The reporting structure, in all cases, did not account for department priorities. Tasks became diffused, and duties such as picking up and distributing mail were less defined. So Essentially, in terms of, in looking at the duties and responsibilities among the three positions, it's felt that by the creation of receptionist administrative position, this individual would be the primary person to serve the ratepayers at the front counter, and they would ensure that some of the routine tasks that are outlined in the report are completed. The individual would require general understanding of all the departments to enable them to answer ratepayer questions in an efficient and timely manner. So whether it's a question regarding public works or a question regarding finance, they would have a general knowledge of everything, and they would be able to answer ratepayer questions, again, in a more efficient and timely manner. Just in terms of the front staff, in terms of the input we received, there was also a suggestion for consideration of some consolidation of some duties and responsibilities. And there's a couple examples outlined there in the report. And by consolidating some of those duties and responsibilities, efficiencies will be achieved. Logistically, we have had some occasions when there's been lack of a coordinated approach to things like vacation approval. And it's proposed that both the clerk's administrative assistant and the receptionist administrative position will report to the clerk, and it'd be the clerk's responsibility then to ensure that the staff coverage at the front was available. As it is or was, in terms of the assistants, the CIO reported to myself, the accounts receivable, accounts payable clerk reported director of finance, public works administrative assistant reported to our director of public works, and our administrative deputy clerk position reported to the clerk. So essentially we had 4 people in the office, all reporting to 4 different people. So we're looking to have a structure that in a more efficient manner. So the proposal, has been reviewed, and it is supported by all staff. Essentially, the proposal results in Mandy Pascorsi moving over and assuming what we're referring to as a clerk's administrative assistant. So she'll be primarily supporting Carson in terms of on the clerk's role. Public Works administrative assistant position will, for all intents and purposes, will remain intact. However, Public Works administers cemetery services in terms of your burials, and as it was, the clerk was doing the paperwork for the burials and the Public Works staff were doing the burials. So we're proposing to move cemetery, for example, from the administrative assistant deputy clerk position over to the Public Works administrative assistant, so that when families come in, they will be dealing primarily with one person in the front office, and then that person will do all the dialoguing out to the field staff. And in terms of the receptionist administrative position, essentially what we're proposing is that the dollars allocated currently for the administrative assistant deputy clerk position, those dollars would be used to fund the receptionist administrative position. All 3 positions are proposed to stay at band 5. We can see no reason why not. So no additional cost to the municipality. And as well, in terms of it provides an opportunity for individuals to take on different or new duties and responsibilities, which is from a staff development growth perspective is something that staff have certainly expressed an interest in. So the proposal that we're proposing achieves efficiencies. It streamlines the processes, it establishes clearly defined roles and responsibilities, it does facilitate staff development, and as well it addresses current staff needs that have been identified. The administrative deputy clerk's last day in the office, her last day will be December 21st, but her physical last day in the office will be December 22nd, so to allow for a smooth transition. December 2nd. To facilitate a smooth transition, it's proposed that we would put the restructuring proposal into effect on November the 16th, which will allow for a couple weeks of that transition. Essentially does result, though, in the elimination of the assistant to the CAO position, and it does result in elimination of the administrative assistant deputy clerk position. But before you can eliminate those positions, we would need to ensure that Mandy or Amanda would move into the clerk's administrative assistant position. The other consideration is signing authority. That was, and is outlined in the report, reviewed extensively. The Public Works Administrative Assistant and the Clerk's Administrative Assistant essentially would be granted the authority to issue marriage licenses, burial permits, lottery licenses, and death certificates. The Clerk's Administrative Assistant would also be granted the signing authority to issue taxi licenses and business licenses. These are currently administered through the clerk and through the administrative assistant and deputy clerk. The clerk and myself would continue to have the same signing authority with respect to those licenses. By virtue of their statutory appointments, the clerk, myself, the director of finance, and the deputy treasurer are and will continue to be commissioner of oaths. If it is determined that we do require additional commissioner, we can acquire additional commissioner through the appointment of a non-statutory position, but there is a fee associated with that. So for the time being, we feel that between the 4 individuals, we should be able to cover the commissioner of oath need. But if we determine at a later date, we'll come back to council and reevaluate that. So with council's permission, we have that motion for council's consideration.
Thank you, Dwayne. Trevor?
My only question relates to the elimination of the position of the administrative assistant deputy clerk effective November 16th.
Oh, good point.
My suggestion would be that would represent December 2nd.
Yes, correct.
Or at least the date when she when she's no longer here. Yeah, so that was just an amendment to the motion that was signed, or that was got a mover and a seconder. Is that I think it's fine to leave the assistant to CAO position as November 16th. That just the admin assistant deputy clerk position should be effective December the 2nd.
Is that okay with the mover and seconder? Okay,
Your
thank
movers,
you.
Councillor Van Hitterson, and your seconders, Councillor McBurney.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
Just if it's open to council.
Yes, it is. Sorry.
I guess it's through your ear to, I guess just open for discussion on this. We've gone through our service delivery review, we've gone through our business, our asset management, and our water structurals buildings are going to need in the near future, whether they're above or beyond what our capabilities of sustaining. Has ever a thought of doing that with personnel requirements as to what we have and what we really need? I made the comment back when we were doing the level review and just the perception of the actual staff doing their own level review as far as the wages going on, whether that should have been out for third party. I'm just wondering if just the way it perceives here that you're not going to ever really get any workers saying that they need less workers to do the same job. Just so it's clear and transparent that has this ever been weighed against any kind of other municipalities, what they use, what their staffing level is for what they get through the year with? I'm just curious if it's ever been weighed against, or if that's ever been a thought.
I'm gonna hand it over to the CAO to see, or the clerk, but we'll start with the CAO.
I'm not trying to play devil advocate here, but I'm just
Yeah.
it's the only process that we have that we haven't gone through a third party look at what we're doing to see if we can find savings and efficiencies.
Yeah, through your worship. Essentially, as far as the service delivery review has done that, and they have identified opportunities for efficiencies to be achieved in terms of, technology, for example, which from a staff's perspective we're currently working on. In terms of a staffing level, the service delivery review does not indicate that we're overstaffed. In terms of for a municipality of our size, and in terms of the services that we're delivering at the present time, which is quite extensive for a municipality of our size. But certainly in terms of if council, as part of the service delivery review, and as you go through that process and receive that report, if council was to decide to reduce services, either level a service or eliminate a service, then certainly that will affect and be considered as part of the staffing levels.
It's probably one of our largest expenditures is labor.
Yeah.
For a township.
Yeah, and the other thing, your worship, is in terms of we have the human resource policy review, and so I've received now the second draft of the policies, so I'll be going through those, discussing those with our senior management team, in terms of looking at the costs associated with that. So, and that'll be coming to council as well. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yes, through you, Reeve. I was just curious, we were ladies departing from a job here. I'm just curious with the KPMG report coming out, I'm just curious why we didn't look at that first before all this happened. I'm just curious on that.
We're gonna have Carson speak to that.
Yeah, through your worship, I was just gonna say that senior management team we did have that report in advance, and we did take some of those things into consideration. So what you'll find in the KPMG service delivery review report is they identified customer service as an area of opportunity. IT was an area of opportunity as well. For example, I think the report recommends that IT go under the clerk's department, and with this change, that would allow us to make those kind of changes. So we definitely did not kind of just do this restructuring proposal evaluation independent of the service delivery review. It was definitely considered.
I'm gonna bring it back over to Kevin.
Just through your quick comment there, that answered most of my first question.
Okay.
Sorry.
Now I see. Thank you, that's.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, and not to be, the bearer of bad news for this municipality is that we have a lot of things that we have not gotten done in a number of different years. Records management, I can say, is the number one biggest downfall of this municipality. Carson found out this week, or last week, or the last 3 weeks, about the issues that we have with regards to records management and where things are. So, at the end of the day, some of those people, I can tell you, from prior council is one of those individuals was succumbed from Huron County in order to do that job. That's what she was brought here to do. When she was brought here to do that, then everything else got added to the document and priority levels shifted. So, at the end of the day, it all becomes based on priority levels that council gives or senior management has given to council, then council sends back to say, here's what we think the priority level should be. At the end of the day, I think, and I'm learning as much as anybody is, some of these things that come as priority to us, we need to maintain them as the priority and say, to hell with whatever else somebody says that's more important. Let's stay the course and get something accomplished, because what's happening is that if you don't do that, it just keeps going and going and going and never seems to end. And some of these positions, I would argue, is that I'm not I think all of these positions are warranted. And the reason why I say that is because I have been in this council chambers at 9:30, and there is 10 people out there asking for something. You can't have one person sitting there thinking you're going to get everything accomplished. So, at the end of the day, is that always there? No. But, I think ultimately, in my mind, there is a lot of work done behind the scenes that we as councillors don't necessarily know. And that's not a fault to council, that's just the fact of the job. We get a job description, and that job description is fairly high level as opposed to the detail that relates to that job description. So, Councillor Faulkner's, thought process as to whether we're comparing to other municipalities and seeing where we look at it as finance compared to, front office staff, I think those are good things that we need to keep coordinating. But I think you gotta be careful about trying to compare apples to apples when you look at the service level of the services that we provide. When you talk about a municipality the size of North Huron, when we have the service level of the city of Stratford. So I think we have to be careful about that, but I think we also need to hold senior management to account exactly as we've done here and make sure that we're making correct point as to follow the correct direction, because again, you're absolutely right, Councillor Faulkner. What is our biggest cost? Capital and labor. It is a huge impact to our municipality. So, making sure people are doing the right thing and not just doing what they think is important is truly important and truly more for senior management than us.
Thank you, Trev. Anyone else? Not seeing anybody, I call the vote. All in favor? Carries. Okay, correspondence. Does anybody want to pull anything out? I see here 8 point.
They all require action.
I was going to say, do I have to read them all?
They're all different. They're all different ones to be discussed. Yes.
Sorry, Reeve, you gotta read.
Sure wish I'd have brought my glasses.
I could read them if you want.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
8.1, Huron Shores ATV Club, request to install wayfinding signs. That the Council Township of North Huron hereby supports the request for the HSATV Club for the installation of ATV wayfinding signage to the Wingham Ward. And further, that the Director of Public Works and Facilities be directed to work with the HSATV Club for the coordination and installation of the wayfinding signs. Do I have a mover? I have Trevor, seconders Paul. I have nobody speaking to this. Would anybody have any questions on it?
I can provide some context if it's needed.
Okay. Nobody's asking any questions? All in favor? Carries. 8.2, Grey Bruce Huron branch of the St. John Ambulance, request for donation. Do I have a mover?
There's no motion there.
Oh. What do we want to do with this one? We're going to have Trevor speak to this one.
Reeve, I think in my mind, I think we defer this request to budget deliberations.
Okay, do I
So
have
I'll
a mover?
take that motion.
Okay, seconder is Kevin. Questions, comments? Seeing none? Oh, go ahead, Paul.
I'm just curious, could we maybe do that with any special things that come in from now on till,
To defer it?
well, till we,
Have
just
budget.
as Councillor said, Deputy,
Yeah.
mhm.
Trevor, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I think we have to be careful. We have a policy that requires them to provide the information by a certain time. That's the policy that they're required to provide, their requirement of what they need by, I think it's November in some respect. I think ultimately, if that is the belief of council, that all of those requests, if they're received in the time based on the policy, that they're just brought to budget, then I think I'm fine with moving to changing my motion to include all of what Councillor Faulkner or Councillor Heffer, is mentioning. If we get them in the proper time, and I agree. I think the less we deal with now and at that budget time, I think is appropriate. So if council is okay with that, I'm okay with Councillor Heffer's change.
Who was the seconder?
Councilor Faulkner.
So you'd have to agree to that?
I agree to that, yes.
Oh, okay, Anita?
Yeah, I'm just worried that sometimes there are things coming up that need to be addressed in shorter way, maybe, or if you say you can only ask for a donation once a year instead of half a year later.
But this, I believe that you can come and ask for a and just somebody can clarify it on staff for me. So we have a certain group of people that ask for the same thing year after year after year. And instead of just, at one time, we were just sending the check, and then we said, well, you gotta at least request it. So now these are the ones that are requesting. I believe at any time, anybody could still come before council and ask for a donation or something like that through the course of the year. You weren't confusing the two, and I'm gonna let, do you wanna speak to that
Yeah,
first?
I'm just saying, we are right now so close to budget time that my suggestion is we're gonna deal with a lot of these requests now. Once the budget is passed, you know, people are gonna potentially ask for consideration outside of the budget time. That's okay. What I'm saying is, if we get a request between now and, you know, December, you know, if you're asking now, if you're already in the 2020 budget, you're gonna have to get in the 2021 one. So, and really, we're not gonna want to approve anything until we have a budget approved. So, you know, in my mind, that's the reason why that policy was put into place. And really, the policy was put into place to make these people, like you said, be account, to send your request in, and then council can look at them all at once, as opposed to, you know, every time, and there was always a 20-minute conversation about who do we give to this money to and who do we give that money to. It ended up being a 45-minute discussion about $300. So really, we were talking about how do we collaborate and consolidate all that discussion into one during budget, and then it's done, and then we just move on from there. That was the intent. So if that's okay, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna, did you wanna speak to that, Doreen? Okay. Carson, I'm gonna get you to speak to that, but I also want you to read back the motion now.
So through you, your worship, to Councillor Van Hiersson. So any correspondence like this that comes through, usually I review it, and if there was a deadline associated with it, right, we need funding for this project that is going to occur in June, kind of thing, right? Obviously can't wait till budget deliberations. I would still bring those forward, but the just kind of broad ones, we want funding for this year, kind of thing, that can wait. We can definitely wait for those. So anything that, if it couldn't wait till budget, it would definitely come forward to council.
Okay, thank you.
And so the motion on the floor is that the council of the Township of North Huron hereby defers the request and any other year-end requests until budget deliberations.
And I believe I have a mover and seconder. Any other questions? Seeing none, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Okay. 8.3, letter from Ross Davies about the 32 Albert Street, Wingham, Ontario. That the council of the Township of North Huron hereby agrees to pass bylaw to confirm that the 7-foot portion of the part Lot 8, Registered Plan 9, now part of Lot 8, Plan 417, pin number 41052-0055 LT, is still an open road allowance, and to revoke the portion of the bylaw number 1303-1957 of the town of Wingham as it pertains to the lands in question. And further, the council deem the adoption of bylaw number 64-2020 to be time sensitive and approves the exception to section 19.1 of the procedural bylaw to allow bylaw number 64-2020 to be adopted at the October 5th council meeting. Do I have a mover? Please, mover.
Yes.
Trevor, seconders Paul. Carson, can you speak to this?
Thank you, your worship. So I guess I'll take my shot at this here. So to build off what Deputy Reeve Sipe said earlier, this reiterates the importance of records management. So I've been working back and forth with Ross Davies from Crawford Mills and Davies on this for a few weeks now. Basically, Brian Bart Cameron at 32 Albert Street are looking to sell their property, and in order for the sale to go through, basically Ross Davies was inquiring into the 7 feet of Albert Street for part lot 8. So in 1957, a bylaw was created which basically conveyed 7 feet of Albert Street to a bunch of different properties. One of those being a property that was owned by the Mowbrays at lot 8. And what Ross found was that it was registered on all the properties except for this one, and that it was found to be, but it was, the land registry had note that it was an unregistered bylaw. So not entirely sure why it wasn't registered at the time in 1957, but that was the case. After further research, what Ross was able to find was that in 1965, the town of Wingham bought the property back, including the 7 feet that was to be conveyed, and then resold it again in 1969, but did not convey those 7 feet of Albert Street for Lot A. So basically, what can be concluded is that that the town of Wingham, now the Township of North Huron, owns that 7 feet of Albert Street. So for this sale to go through, basically, Ross is asking that the township pass a bylaw which, one, confirms that it's still an open road allowance so that the property is not landlocked and they can access their property, and two, that it revokes the portion of the unregistered bylaw as it pertains to this lot. This was all reviewed by the township solicitor, and the bylaw that council will have seen in the agenda package was prepared by the township solicitor as well. So at this point, the township would retain the 7 feet of land, but there's nothing, after this sale goes through, there's nothing from stopping the township from approaching the next owner and saying, are you interested in the 7 feet of land? Obviously, that would slightly reduce the maintenance costs for us as well as any potential liability.
Thank you. Questions or comments? 57, eh? Okay.
I'm glad you understood it, Carson, because I sure as heck didn't. But, so who is using the 7 feet now? Lauren?
Through your worship to Councilor Palmer, it wasn't entirely clear who owned it until now, so technically the township retains it.
Yeah, I was just wondering if squatters' rights comes into play at all, but no one's claiming that. That would have been fun.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I listened to most people in this council, and one time or another say they weren't born when this went through. I can finally now say, in 1957, I wasn't born.
We're still picking up yesterday's, Kevin.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That was a good year.
Anyone else?
And Paul was.
Seeing none, I call the vote. All in favor? Carries. 8.4, Regional Tourism Association for Inc. Blythe, BIA, regarding funding agreement for the installation of a wayfinding sign along the G2G Trail. That the Council of Township of North Huron hereby agrees to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Regional Tourism Organization for Inc. for a funding agreement for the installation of wayfinding signs on the G2G Trail by the Blythe BIA. And further, that the council deems the adoption of the bylaw number 66-2020 being a bylaw to authorize the Region Clerk to sign on behalf of the council a memorandum of understanding between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron and the Regional Tourism Association for Inc. to be a time-sensitive matter, and grants an exception to the section 19.1 of the procedural bylaw to allow bylaw number 66-2020 to be adopted at the October 5th, 2020 council meeting. And further, the Director of the Public Works and Facilities is directed to work with the Blythe BIA for the coordination and installation of the wayfinding signs. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin, seconder. I have Rick seconding. Questions or comments? Seeing none, I call the motion. All in favor? Oh, sorry, did you have a question, Chris?
Yeah, I did. Okay, I thought someone was maybe gonna explain it more, but,
I can explain it if it's needed.
Okay, if you would like, we will have Carson speak.
yes,
to it.
please.
So the context for this one is Blythe BAA was working with Regional Tourism Organization for funding, and basically that funding would allow the Blythe BAA through the Blythe BAA board through one of their subcommittees to install wayfinding signage on the North Huron leased portion of the G2G Trail. So basically this request, this was something that was in the works by the Blythe BIA, and basically it came about that the Blythe BIA doesn't actually have signing authority to enter into these agreements, so that's why it had to come to council. And so what you'll have seen attached in your agenda package is the memorandum of understanding that was developed between the Township of North Huron and RTO4, and then also a recommendation letter from the Blythe BIA saying that North Huron should agree to enter into this funding agreement so that the Blythe BIA can receive the funds for the installation of the wayfinding signage along the GG trail.
Go ahead.
So are we on the hook for the 5,000?
Uh,
How's that read? Like,
so the $5,000 would be a donation from RTO4 to North Huron, which we would then facilitate to the BIA so that they could carry out their wayfinding signage project.
and in and out. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, just because we're the ones who, council is the ones who has the ability to enter into agreements and not the BIA.
Okay.
Kevin?
Through you, Reeve, any committee of council cannot accept a gift. Say if someone in our town, in East Walleyes wanted to put a new bench at the East Walleyes Park, that money would have to come to council, and then they would have to, whoever would have to request it from council to be brought back. The Blythe BIA, Wingham BIA even, does not have the signing authority. Every penny that they would get in as a gift or any funding for any benefit would have to go through council because they're a committee of council. That's the only clarification. It's not council's having to spend any money. It's just that they had the trail people say they want to put up signage, and they would give the BIA the money to do it, but it would has to go to council and come back out.
Okay, any other questions? Not seeing any, I call the motion, all in favor, carries. Okay, next is 8.5, KPMG, North Huron Municipal Service Delivery Review Final Report, that the Township of North Huron hereby receives the final municipal service delivery review report prepared by KPMG for information purposes, and further the council agrees to review the report in advance of KPMG's delegation presentation scheduled for the October 22nd, 2020 special council meeting. Do I have a mover? I have Trevor, seconder, I have Paul. Questions or concerns? Not seeing any, I call the motion, all in favor, carries. Oh, it reads activity report. Just a couple of things, I just wanted to point out that at County Council, we've chosen to continue virtual meetings for now, till the COVID is over. We didn't decide to go back to personal attendance. Number two is the interesting thing that's happened lately is our Economic Development Recovery Team met with the servicers for our area for fiber, for services on fiber and how we can get it. Also joined at that with us on Friday was Lisa Thompson, MPP for Huron-Bruce. We're very grateful for her to be there especially. What we did, we talked about the situation of not having fiber through East Wallanosh and the headaches it's giving us even on our own team. Anita has some situations too when we're trying to do it. And COVID may come back, but more importantly, we also have to think about if there was a farmer on a field that got hurt and he had no signal. What do? We should have signals for him. It was an interesting meeting, and also with the schools. We have children that are in schools, and of course, guess who knows that they can't get through and they can't have their learning because they don't have the powers. We had a nice conversation with the gentleman, and I learned a little bit about, because I try not to learn too much too quick, I learned a little bit about how everything works. And we kind of came up with a solution that we, through the SWIFT program, we can apply for funding to get higher some fiber in our area, but we've never applied for it before. Matter of fact, I didn't even see us anywhere on the SWIFT site of asking for it. And so what we've done, and they've spent, I'm not going to get into how much money they've spent to put very little in the ground, but I'm told it has changed in the last 18 months, so I'm happy to hear that. So without going on and on and on, what's happening is we're going to get back together, I believe, in a month or two, because they're actually funding us. We just happen to have this meeting now and find out that the request for funding is coming up in December. So Lisa's agreed to meet with us. We've stretched out to Ben Lobb to see if he would be there, and the two servicing companies that service our area to get us, whether it's fiber or towers or whatever, and I'm not going to claim to understand anything about computers or how they work. All I know is I need mine to work really fast, and most of us do. So I just want council to know that your Economic Development Recovery Committee has made this a priority. We feel this is a priority for COVID-19, because we may have a resurgence of it, and most of us need that for even our businesses, even, you know, farmers and all of us. We need the higher speed to make things work. So I just wanted to bring council up to speed on that one. And believe it or not, I'm gonna give you a break, and that's all the talking I'm gonna do on that. So, Dwayne, did you want to add to that? That was rather an important one. Did I miss anything there at this point?
I don't think so. Discussions are continuing, and we have all the partners sitting at the table. And as Reeve has indicated, another meeting we're looking at November, early to mid-November, in time to get applications submitted to SWIFT for consideration. So, and during, as Reeve has indicated, when we were sitting at the table and discussing it, it was realized that we were missing one of the partners, in particular the federal government. So we, more particularly, the Reeve has extended invitation to Ben to join the discussion. So we're waiting to hear back on that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, 9.2, council member reports, verbal and written updates from members who sit on boards or committees. Don't think too many boards or committees flying. Go ahead, Anita.
Yeah, in following up on my comments regarding the Wingham floodplain mapping, Maitland Valley has sent letters to all affected property owners. The information center will be at the Knights of Columbus meeting room from October 28th to the 30th. And on the Maitland Valley website, all meetings are in person, there are no walk-ins, and everybody has to make an appointment. And COVID advisories are in place. If you need an appointment, then you can call the Maitland Valley.
Thank you, Anita. Just a quick question for you. Is it just the people that are affected by a change that they want to come in, or all of us along the river?
No, everybody that's in the
Okay.
affected area
Okay.
should have had a letter.
Okay, I'll look into that. Thank you very kindly. Anyone else?
So,
Paul?
sorry, I'm just curious, may I ask Anita a question? I just wondering, so a councillor couldn't go and see if there's more properties that?
Yeah, everybody can go if you, as long as you make an appointment.
Okay, thanks.
It's from 9 in the morning till, with breaks till, I think, 7:30 or 8:30 at night. But you have to make an appointment.
Okay, thank you very kindly. Anyone else? Go ahead, Trevor.
Yes, Reeve, thanks. I did want to mention that I have been meeting sporadically, actually, with the Community Connectors group, the Wingham Community Connectors. They had a meeting, I think it was last week. They talked about a number of initiatives that they have. One initiative that is pretty dear to the municipality that that the municipality's been working on ever since the job shortages is the newcomers. So the conversation has been about putting together a package to provide newcomers that come to the that come to Wingham and the North Huron area with regards to information that they can get as it relates to important services or needs of the municipality. And you know, my suggestion at that committee, and I'm just relaying it on as part of the committee, as I said, you know, the human touch of that discussion and not just a package might be more fruitful than just handing a package to somebody and saying, here's a website and go about your merry way. I have provided myself as you know, somebody who, if they wanted to provide, you know, contact information for newcomers to come to municipality and want to learn about the municipality. I told when I lived in this municipality for 15 years, I am not going to say that I know everything about it. I don't say that I do, but I can tell you right now, I will do everything in my power to find the information that I can. So, you know, that type of stuff I have said is important. The other initiative that they talked about was there's, and I quickly put a little side note to them as it relates to, they were looking to have, you know, neighborhood, I think it was called a neighborhood party, is the context in which they used, and I basically had said that might be fine not in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, you're not going to get a lot of support. I did not speak for council, but I said you're not going to get a whole lot of support from council as it relates to the context and the liability as to go and here have a neighborhood party, but you can't go to a council meeting and spend within 20 feet of each other. So, at the end of the day, there is lots of discussions about, what we as a community can continue to do to put community activism back into the play. There's lots of discussion about, the lighting of the lights and those types of things because of COVID-19 and the success of those things. Those are staples in this municipality that we've had them for many, many years. And there has been lots of discussion about what does that look like going forward. So what I can say to you is they are looking outside the box. They are thinking outside the box. They're truly passionate about making sure this community is and not only it's the William Community Connectors, but I can argue and say they're fine with having it as North Huron, and I would argue is that is what they're willing to do and provide that direction. So I just wanted to pass along that information. The William BIA has had a couple of meetings. I was not able to make the last one. I'm on parenting duty for my kids, so I was not able to make that early morning meeting. But they're continuing the process of reopening North Huron. I think relatively successfully, mind you. I don't think you could argue that the William BIA is pretty excited in the sense that we've had more. It seems like we've had more openings during COVID than we've had outside of COVID. In the sense of ultimately I'm hearing positive things from a development standpoint. The BIA is very impressed about the fact that we're willing to talk about things, and the BIA. I think the BIA is impressed on themselves and the fact that they are open and they have a good core nucleus of volunteerism and support. And I think it will only continue as they open, and I think I'm happy to be a part of that and let them know when there's questions that relates to development of housing and all those stuffs that we're giving them the information. I know Paul Councillor Heffer's been at those meetings as well, so they're getting the double whammy when we go to those meetings, because me and Councillor Heffer have been collectively being there to try to make sure that they have the information that council has so that they can make the decisions that are important to them at the time being.
I'm just gonna follow up that if you don't mind, Trevor. This township has done such a good job, that through COVID, and there was no jobs, the people that we brought all the way from India stayed with us to the point that when I called the lady at Westcast when they were opening back up and said, how are things going? Do we need to get back on track with the acute labor shortage? And she said, Mr. Bailey, they all stayed. They didn't go away, and they're here at work. They waited for it. And so our community has made them very welcome. As Trevor said, our community is doing a fantastic job, and it was just so nice to hear, because we have had the threat of loss because of we could end up with company loss. Matter of fact, it's going the other way. The company is going to expand here in our area. But I just want to point out that Trevor is so right, and we should all be proud of ourselves, because they felt at home to the point where they did not leave, go back to London where their relatives were. They still just went and visited, but they stayed right here. And when the factories opened up, they went back to work. So great, just let everybody know they're doing a great job.
And I would just like to reiterate that the Wingham Community Connectors had actually had one of the newcomers actually at the meeting. Gurdeep is his name. He provided lots of information as it relates to how he felt when he came to this municipality, how information was relatively scarce, in the sense of it's information overload and trying to navigate that. So I think the Wingham Community Connectors is learning about those types of things, but I think it's that's the type of stuff I think that is going to be very important for those community groups to and some of the discussion is about how we integrate. How do we integrate the municipality into this discussion? How do we have information so that there's not a ton of information everywhere, but a little bit of information somewhere, and make it so it's ideal for somebody who's new coming and being able to function in the municipality that they're brand new in. So I think it's important.
Thank you, Trevor. Anyone else? Seeing none, that was committee comments by members.
That was council member reports.
Okay, thank you. Comments by members. Any comments, Trevor?
I just want to reiterate the fact that I was so impressed with let me just get Connor. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. I'm very impressed in the fact that, you know, he didn't ask for anything. He asked for support. And really, all honesty, we could go a long way to get a lot of youth involved in this municipality in such way. You know, is he going to be excited about other things like roads and stuff? No, that's not important to them. But, you know, us as a council being available, being open and honest and transparent with an individual with a youth like that, in my mind, that just begs the question that we're probably going to have more. And I think I want to see more. I want to see more kids, more youth, more people come to this municipality and provide some initiative, provide some strength and foundation to what they would like to see in their municipality. It's going to be their municipality for the next 50 years. And I'm so excited in the sense that you know, they were here. I walked out. They were on their little scooters out there. They were enjoying themselves. They were polite when I walked by. I just think in the more mind, it's people and youth like that aren't asking for the world. They're just asking for somebody to listen to them. And you know, that's the part I want to take out of this tonight. I was so impressed about what they provided in an informational package, as well as just how they thought. How do you think about that site? And I can't disown what they said. That is what it is.
Yeah.
They use it. I don't personally. So, you know, I just wanted to, you know, reiterate to, you know, members of council and people who are listening that I'm so impressed about that committee and that delegation, in the sense that that's the type of delegation that, you know, I like to see come to this council, and we're looking to go move forward. We may not have the right answer, but we're willing to listen. And I think that's going to be a long serving to this council.
Yes. Anyone else? Anita?
Yeah, I just want to let everybody know that I won't be here the next council meeting because of my surgery.
You're going to get your congratulations. How did you get that great big list down so quickly? My mom went through it, so I know how long it takes. Good for you, girl.
Be safe.
Anyone else? Not seeing any. We'll move on to notice of motions. There is none. Bylaws. Bylaw 11.1. Bylaw number 60-2020. Do I have a mover?
I will move it, Reeve.
Oh wait, Trevor moves it. Chris seconds it. All in favor? Carries. Bylaw number 61-2020. Do I have a mover? I have Rick, seconder. Kevin, all in favor? Carries. See how fast I'm reading these? 11.3. 62.-2020. Do I have a mover? I have Anita and I have Kevin. All in favor? Carries. Bylaw number 63-2020 being, nope. Do I have a mover? I have Paul and I have Trevor seconding. All in favor? Carries. Bylaw number 64-2020. Do I have a mover? I have Chris. I have Rick. All in favor? Carries. Bylaw number 65-2020. Do I have a mover? I have Anita and I have Trevor. All in favor? Carries. Bylaw number 66-2020. Do I have a mover? I have Trevor. I have Rick seconding. All in favor? Carries. Announcement. Quarter revision for the Charter Municipal Drain Improvement 2020 will be held on Wednesday, October 14th, 2020 at 9 a.m. at the North Huron Council Chambers. The next regular council meeting will be held on Monday, October 19th, here at the council chambers, or will that be upstairs?
Through your worship to council, that'll be contingent on how fast we can go about relocating the live streaming infrastructure and everything. So if it all goes to plan, ideally all those meetings will be held in the Wingham Town Hall Theatre.
Okay, thank you. A special council meeting will be held Thursday 22nd at 9 a.m. at the North Huron Council Chambers. The next North Huron Police Services Board will be held on Tuesday, October 20th, 2020 here at 7 p.m. Other business, I don't see any. Closed session reporting out, there are none. Confirmatory bylaw. Bylaw number 67-2020 being a bylaw of the Township of North Huron to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by the Council of Township of North Huron. Do I have a mover? I have Rick seconding. Paul, all in favor? Carries. Adjournment, that the Council of Township of North Huron agrees being no further business before council, the meeting hereby adjourns at 9:10 p.m. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin, I have Anita seconding. All in favor? Carries. Thank you.